All right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 2. Brian Hayes, Yo-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, and there he is, Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star. Good to see you, Dave. It's been a while.
Been a while, fellas. How's it going? Nothing going on around here lately, eh?
No, nothing. No news today. Right,
No.
I guess I'm sure you're more connected than we would be down there. MLSE, there's a lot of buzz, right? What's going to happen with Shanahan? What's Keith Pelley got in store?
Yeah.
All these different stories.
What do you think is the process here, Feschuk? Are they just like sitting in a boardroom, or is this the end of the line, or is this how do we make this better, or what the hell would you suggest would be going on here?
Well, there's so much change in the air, O-Dog. Like, they met today, the MLSE board. There's no doubt about that. What's come out of that meeting, I think we'll probably find out about that. I'm hearing maybe by next week, Mr. Pelley would likely address Leafs Nation. And what we'll hear,
until next week?
Yeah, next week. I mean, tomorrow's Friday. I don't know if they're going to do it tomorrow. I'd be shocked if they did it tomorrow. You never know, I guess. But these guys are never in a rush, O-Dog. These guys are the richest guys in town. They take their time. They're not answering to us in a hurry. And so, but what's going to happen? I mean, I think we can all see the writing on the wall here. You know, Brendan Shanahan ain't running this place anymore. It might be the end of presidents at MLSE in general, or the beginning of the end of presidents at MLSE in general, if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly. Because
so that would suggest Masai. That would suggest, like, Toronto FC's not going to have that in the future. The Argos, like, none of these teams that you think fall under the umbrella of MLSE, or what?
It might be a case-by-case basis, but let's not forget, like, before Tim Lewicki came to town about a decade ago, you know, Brian Burke was the president and GM of the Maple Leafs, right? Brian Colangelo was the president and GM of the Toronto Raptors. And Lewicki, who came from LA, where they had some success with presidents in the AEG family, he decided to add this extra layer of a highly compensated executive that oversees the organization. He brought in Masai, he brought in Brendan Shanahan. But I've also heard people say, look, there's been some success there, but there's also been a lot of money spent. Well,
we have some news. This is great. MLSE decided right as we're coming on the air. Literally 1 minute ago, they tweeted out. That's it. Shanahan's out. This kind of feels like, remember, with the Babcock news, where I'm like, what happened? What's going on? Babcock's out. Here we are, again, I guess, 5-6 years later. But I'm just reading the news and the press release that was just released by the Maple Leafs and Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. Following the completion of the Maple Leaf 24-25 season with a loss in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs to the Florida Panthers, MLSE announced that the contract for team president and alternate governor Brendan Shanahan would not be renewed this offseason. So that's, words, they matter. But that's effectively firing Shanahan.
Right.
Like, they're going to use the term his contract wasn't renewed. They could have renewed his contract. A little bit surprised it wasn't like mutually agreed. Like, I thought Shanahan might try to get out in front of that and mutually agreed to.
I think moving on is appropriate. Like, they could have, like you said, they could have signed him to a new contract. They're moving on from him.
Yeah,
and
exactly. They're going a different direction.
No matter how you slice it, he's not coming back. And I think in sports terms, like, maybe you guys would know better than me, isn't an 11-year term with one organization basically an eternity?
It's a long time. It's a long time.
Yeah.
A long
so
time.
It's a great run. I think he did a lot of great things. And when you just get down to the brass taxes, he had a lot of belief in those players when he brought them in, and he understood coming in here that it was difficult in Canadian markets to accumulate talent. And when he got it, he believed in them and he wanted to keep them, and they could never pay him back. That's kind of the gist of it. Like, they could never break through because he believed, and he said it time after time again, if these guys get enough opportunities, they're going to break through. And thus far, they couldn't do it. They haven't done it.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, when you consider when he arrived, we talked about it yesterday, because, it's been building towards this all week, really. Once you saw what happened on Sunday night in Game 7, immediately people went into the big picture conversation about Shanahan, about Marner, about Tavares. Those are the big three. And Shanahan, to me, felt like the most obvious one that they would be parting ways with and they would go in a different direction. And 11 years is a long, long time. Like, it's a long time. You mentioned it, Dave. The guy who brought him in was Tim Lewicki.
Yeah.
Lewicki was out of here before COVID hit.
I mean, it's amazing.
He left a long time ago.
He wasn't here that long.
No, Lewicki wasn't here that long. But there's been a lot of change in this city, within this organization, within the ownership group. That's another thing you have to consider. Like, we are going to hear from Keith Pelley at some point, and I'm on the air, so I can't read this full article to know exactly what their
Apparently
plans
it's now
are.
tomorrow.
1 p.m. tomorrow. Okay,
Yeah.
There you go. So 1 p.m. tomorrow, that'll be Pelley, and I don't know if Trey Living's up there. I don't know what else comes with this on a Maple Leafs, front. But you've got a scenario here where Bell is out. They no longer have equal power to Rogers. They have no more power in terms of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. They sold their rights to that. Larry Tannenbaum, I think it's been well reported on. Dave, you can speak to this, but not sure he's going to be a part of the program long term. And we're not far off from basically a solo owner, and it is a corporation. I mean, Rogers owns it, but you can recall, like, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment just a month or two ago did a full review of their operation and let go 10% of their workforce. So they've already started to move in a different direction, and I would have to believe they're moving in the direction of how Edward Rogers wants it all to be run, and how Rogers wants it to be run. And I can't imagine this will only be the Maple Leafs. It likely will filter into the Raptors and Toronto FC and all the stadiums and how they operate in general. I mean, I think we're moving into a new era where the MLSE of Rogers, Bell, Tannenbaum, Lewicki, et cetera, we're moving into a new era, and it might be representative with the moving on of Brendan Shanahan.
Without a doubt. I mean, it feels that way. But to your point, O-Dog, about 11 years, like, it is amazing. Like, you think about this, Shanahan has had 5 coaches, 5 GMs if you count Mark Hunter's very short tenure as a co-GM on an interim basis when they were kind of figuring out whether it would be Dubis or Hunter. He was here when Randy Carlisle was here. It's amazing. And Dave Nonis, how long ago was that? So, it's a hell of a run. He got the 6-year extension after his first 5 years without the team really doing anything in the playoffs. And so it's an amazing run. It's an amazing kind of testament to Brendan Shanahan's ability to walk into a room and sell his vision. Problem was, the vision never panned out the way he wanted it to.
Yeah, it didn't get over the top. But, as we've been talking about all week, it's, you've been knocking on the same door for about 5 years now, right? You're at the same door for 5 years about just trying to get to that, not even the final level because they've only been in the second round, but that third level, eventually the fourth level, and then the fifth level is actually winning the Stanley Cup. The thing is, when he took over, this team was in storage room B. They were in the basement of everything in terms of the way they were run,
man.
In terms of, like, having absolutely no hope, no feeling of optimism, no connection to their history. And Shanahan came in, and I think the first 4 or 5 years on the job did almost everything right, like almost everything perfectly, from bringing in Lou, getting Babcock. They drafted Nylander, then they drafted Marner, then they win the lottery, which I believe was 10 years ago tonight. Irony, but I believe it was 10 years ago tonight that that they won the lottery, and obviously then they take Matthews, and boom, you're off and running. The issue has been, the last 3 or 4 years, like you said, he was so blinded by his philosophy, I think stubborn to his philosophy, I think overly concerned, in my opinion, of, you got to find guys that like it here or are willing to be here, as if it's some purgatory. Toronto's so tough. I think he bought in many ways to how tough it is in Toronto, and I think that a lot of that filtered through the franchise. It's so tough. It's so difficult. People are going to be tough on you. There's so much
that
history.
And a combination of he found players that liked it here. To get a William Nylander that actually liked being here. Hometown kid Mitch Marner that liked being here. It was like, at that particular time, there was a lot of going around the league of, I don't want to play in Canada. Why would I want to do that? And he came upon these players, and it was like, we finally got some guys that are talented that want to be here, to a fault.
But that's my point. That's what I'm saying. It's, yes, sure, you want them here, but you don't just say you get everything because you're willing to be here.
Exactly.
Like that's what I'm arguing. I'm not against the idea that you want people in your market, and this is a unique market, and it's no different than anywhere else. It's just he allowed the players to take advantage of that, in my opinion, with the contract negotiations and everything. And again, got blinded by the talent, which you understand. He would not be alone in that. I don't think that's necessarily a fatal flaw. But it got to a point where other good players left and other ingredients weren't brought in because it was about the 4 guys doing it, and Morgan Riley maybe being the 5th. Yet, at the same time, 11 years here, playoffs 9 straight, a well-respected organization. There's a lot of good things that have happened here in 11 years, and I have no doubt he will be sought after. That's the other amazing thing, and that's the reality of pro sports. Mitch Marner is going to be sought after. If Tavares is there on July 1st, he's going to get a lot of calls. Shanahan, he may walk right into another job by tomorrow night.
Yeah, well, not after. It's kind of funny how he broke up with Lou, and now it feels like Lou and Shanny are getting back together. Because
down on the island, you're saying?
Well, Lou Lamoriello is very much involved still down on the island, right? He's got a deal to be the advisor to the owner down there with the Islanders.
What is that role? Advisor to the owner now?
Well, that's a great role, Doc.
Yeah,
you want to be friends with the guy with the most money in the building, right? And sounds like Lou's got a nice relationship there. And, even though, Shanny passed over Lou for his wonder boy Kyle Dubis at some point in their relationship, and there was obviously some hard feelings when that thing went down. Sounds as though the relationship, which is very real. I believe that Shanahan talks about Lou Lamoriello like almost like a second father, the guy who drafted him into the NHL and taught him so much about how to become a player and a man and a professional in the league. It sounds like they're on the way to getting back together. That should be a fun, spicy, 3-headed monster there with Lou, Shanny, and Patrick Waugh, fellas. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to work.
I don't think Patrick Waugh cares who's around. He's just going to do his thing.
Like those are all guys with a lot of confidence, a lot of reasons for confidence that border on arrogance. But I think Patrick Waugh would look at Brendan Shanahan, which would be incredible if that happens. There's one of the faces of the Detroit Red Wings, one of the faces of the Colorado Avalanche, the two of them meeting in midair at center ice in that famous fight.
What a play.
The idea that they would be working together. I'm sure Waugh would respect him, but I think Waugh would make it pretty clear pretty quickly, I'm running this operation, and this is the way it goes with Patrick Waugh. But we'll see if that ends up happening. Maybe Shanahan doesn't want that job. Maybe he waits for something else.
Yeah, maybe.
But ultimately, this is news that I think we were preparing for all week, that Shanahan would be let go. And I'm curious to see what this means, for Brad Treliving. If he's staying, which I presume he will, does he have more power? Does he all of a sudden have more power to do things that maybe he couldn't do as of yesterday? What happens? How does Marner feel about this? How does Tavares feel about this? How does Matthews and Nylander feel about this? Austin Matthews is as connected to Brendan Shanahan as anyone else in his hockey career.
Right.
It could have effects. I really think Mitch Marner is going to go play somewhere else, but it could have a big-time effect on other decisions. Because if Brad Treliving's the GM and he kind of had thoughts on his own where it'd be like, I don't know if they were differing and he's allowed to make the call himself now. Maybe there's different decisions that are going to be made. So who knows how those play out.
Well,
I'm sure Brad Treliving isn't going anywhere either. And it's not that for people that are like, this is shocking. I played a long time in the league for the Carolina Hurricanes. There was Peter Karmanos, the owner, and then there was Jim Rutherford, the GM. There was nothing in between. Like this. The hockey guy does the hockey things. I'm sure big transactions, contract signings, they got to be approved by the owner, of course. But that's how it's been for a lot of places for a long time. There's still no president in Carolina. Like this.
Yeah,
and I think, what I mean? It's not that odd.
You've definitely heard people say around the league and around pro sports in general that, maybe in some ways this era of analytics and optimization and, throwing money at problems that, powerful organizations like MLSE who have endless resources in terms of finances, maybe it kind of leads to this sort of bloated hierarchy where there's so many people working there that nobody knows what anybody does, and nobody's really truly responsible, maybe other than the guy right at the top. And so maybe there is something to be said for a little bit of streamlining, and certainly if you're into cost cutting, you can definitely make that argument.
Well, and that's the interesting thing. Like, fans hear cost cutting, and I think it makes you wince a little bit, right? You're like, okay, well, what is that? Where else are you going to cut? But I think it's been well stated and well documented for years that the Leafs operations are so bloated. They have so many
pages
people.
And pages of staff.
Yes. Like, almost anyone that's ever played for the team is an assistant to the assistant of the assistant's assistant.
Yes.
And, it's endless how many people are working down there. But what Shanahan also had, his fingerprints on was the way, they did business, the way season ticket holders were handled, the way game ops were handled. Like, he was involved in that.
Oh, yeah.
He was heavily involved in game operations in terms of what was the goal song. Remember that? There was all this discussion. That was his call, I believe, to either go with what it was going to be, stick with what it was going to be, move on from it eventually, how they handle the alumni.
The alumni is an important one for me, Hayes, because to see those guys that played for the Leafs for a long time, I don't even consider myself one of them. I was there for 2 years. But to see them go to the game and have the ability to go to the game, wear the jacket, be remembered, and just have a place to sit and watch the Leaf game if you just do so choose, like it meant a lot to me to see for those guys. Not for me, for those guys. So that was awesome.
Yes, absolutely. And I'd
You've
like
been
to
in
believe
there a
that'll
bunch,
continue.
and you saw what goes on. Like, it's just it's a nice thing for the guys.
Incredible operation.
Wow.
Incredible operation.
That's a great point, O-Dog, because I think, you sometimes gets overlooked. It's people pile on Shanahan's faults, and for good reason. Like, he's had an awfully long time and an awfully long leash and hasn't been able to get it done when it matters as an executive. But, like, early in his tenure, he did a lot of the right things, like the retiring of the numbers that had been kind of honored all those years. And
Legends Row, all of it.
Legends Row,
Yep.
and, remaking the crest and, sort of trying to restore the pride in the franchise and the heritage in the franchise. I think all those things, he got all that stuff and he understood all that stuff. And I think that was really important.
And that can't be lost now.
Can't be lost.
That's what that would be a concern. Like, I get it. If you're a fan, what happens in the alumni box does not affect you. I understand that. Like, the guy driving around doesn't care.
Doesn't care at all.
Yeah,
and that's understandable.
But it's important stuff in terms of the way your franchise is run, in terms of connecting with the history, in terms of your because, again, prior to him arriving, there were some real embarrassments in terms of the way some things went down and the way some things were handled. So that would be the concern, I think. If what Shanahan kind of represented was steadiness, was class, was an operation that wasn't easily goofed on. Yes, you could look at their playoff history and their performances. I get it, of course, but this wasn't some rudderless ship. And I don't think you should immediately anticipate that it will become that. I don't think it will become that, but Shanahan's no longer here to keep those checks and balances, invoked, so to speak. Like, now it's Pelley. And this is where the thing is. If Keith Pelley's going to do the whole thing, well, he's got the Leafs and the Raptors and TFC and the Argos.
Dude, that's what I don't understand.
That's a lot, man.
It's a lot on that. What is that guy at? Like, it's tough enough looking after one team.
Yeah.
One element of a team. What is he going to do? Like, he doesn't know squat about playing hockey. So what is he going to do? Oversee hockey operations?
It can't happen, right? I mean, it has in the past where guys have been like. The reality of it is if you're going up the chain, you got to run it by someone in a suit. I want to hire this person. I want to fire that person. And what you hope doesn't happen is whoever that happens to be doesn't start thinking that they're all of a sudden something that they're not.
Yeah.
Like that.
Right.
That
a lot
is
of
very
smart
concerning.
people, like our boss J-Max, he's a smart guy, but he can't go run the Leafs. Sorry. Like, he's just
right.
J-Mac, you can't do it. I'm sorry.
I don't know why he's
I don't know. I mean, why are you saying?
No.
I mean,
he's got to take
I wouldn't. He doesn't need to be running the Maple Leafs. I don't think hockey is his expertise.
He's busy enough with you and I and what's going on here. He's got enough
don't
on
text
his plate.
me, J-Mac. Don't come at me.
He's got a lot on his plate.
To defend Pelley, I mean, Pelley did play college hockey, I believe university hockey at Ryerson, the formerly
Get
him in there.
University.
Get him negotiating.
The guy was running the European tour 2 years ago, and all of a sudden he's going to be making trades. What?
He's not making trades.
No. Well, he's not making. I don't know. I don't even care. He's a nice guy. I don't even care what he does.
Tree Living is, I'm assuming, running the show here. And again, breaking news this hour: Brendan Shanahan has been let go by the Leafs, or his contract will not be renewed. Go ahead.
Right, and but I guess the point you're making, though, O-Dog, is like when you remove the layer of team president, and it's a direct report from the GM to the CEO, Keith Pelley. Yeah, well, how does that affect things? Does he become the new Shanahan, essentially? It's a good question. It's a really good question. The idea was that the layer of the president was worried about the organization, where the GM was maybe worried about the team. In other words, the president had the big picture in mind more often. The GM's worried about making the playoffs right now and winning now. Those two things kind of had to go together, obviously, and you can't really separate one from the other, but that was the idea behind the extra layer. And whether they're going to, get rid of that extra layer with all the other franchises, who knows? I think it's going to be a case-by-case basis. Masai Ujiri's tenure is obviously tied to the sunset clause in Larry Tannenbaum's ownership deal, which is going to come to an end next year, like 13 months from now or so. So obviously Masai's going to want some clarity on his future,
right?
In very short order, because he's not going to want to go into essentially what is a lame duck year without a contract, because that can cause all kinds of uncertainty.
He sees what's going on. I mean, this is a Maple Leaf story, but it's a Maple Leaf sports and entertainment story just as much. And Masai's not a stupid guy. Like, Masai is savvy. He and just like Shanahan would have sniffed this out. Shanahan, I'm sure he anticipated this was coming. He maybe wanted to find a way to survive it or get through it. I think it does raise the question, like when Pelley arrived last year and did his assessment and moved on from other people in different parts of the organization, why he committed to one more year with Shanahan, but he chose to. And again, they had a great regular season, made it to the second round. This is not like they finished with 78 points. They had a lot of good things go their way this year. But yeah, I do think if you're Masai, that is the next story here. That's the next chapter. Like if this is basically a new game plan being laid down from ownership through Keith Pelley, that I want more streamlining. I want less people around. I don't need, because again, the presidents make the most money. That's another thing. Like the GMs make good money. The presidents are making a fortune. Like Masai's making a fortune.
Well, didn't Wiki do that when he got here? He was chopping people. He chopped left, right.
Everybody was out, and Shanahan did the same thing.
He set up a giant tent at the C&E and got people in line and said, "You're gone, you're gone, you're gone, you're gone."
Oh, he came in and just cut and cut and cut, and that's what generally happens when you get a new guy at the top. And again, Pelley streamlined through MLSE and just announced it a month or two ago. Like they shaved off 10% of their workforce already. This is different. This is more unique. But all right, breaking news this hour: Brendan Shanahan not returning as the president of the Maple Leafs after 11 years. I just happen to have a couple of lists that I was going to get to this afternoon. The 5 highlights of the Shanahan era and the 5 lowlights of the Shanahan era. So I don't know if you guys are interested in hearing those, and I'm sure you're interested in debating those.
You had me at lists.
I have a 2-pack of a list. I got both sides of the coin. All right, so we're going to run off those lists. We'll get to those. We've got Frankie Corrado coming up today. We've got Pierre LeBrun that will join us today. Kevin Harlan was at the Garden calling that unbelievable basketball game last night. Last night was it was the witching hour. Well, the Oilers were choking. The Knicks were choking. Like, it was just crazy back and forth action in Dallas and in New York. So we'll recap both of those two games and what we saw last night. And again, when you consider what could happen tonight down in Carolina, your old stomping ground, we got Florida and Carolina, and Florida looking to go up 2-0 in that series. Also, the Jays and the Padres still playing. Jays looking for a sweep in that 3-game series. So we're tracking that as well. Dave Feschuk's in here. The O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill. I'm Brian Hayes. Breaking news this hour. Brendan Shanahan is out here in Toronto. More on that still to come. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Overdrive on TSN is powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score.
At FanDuel, we know hockey fans don't just have a hunch. You have a hockey hunch. You could tell they're going to light the lamp before they do. You could see that assist coming a mile away.
Down the board, pass it right,
and you just know when your goalie is totally in the zone. So put your hockey hunches together for a same-game parlay. Bet the NHL all season long on FanDuel, North America's #1 sportsbook.
First, we won J.D. Power, ranking Ram the #1 brand in new vehicle quality. Then we won 2025 Motor Trend Truck of the Year. Now, we're throwing our weight around even more with the new Ram Heavy Duty. Well, you know what they say. You win some, you win some. And every win is inspired by the ones who drive us. Ram, built to serve.
Our new home, somewhere we can build a life. And I'm gonna do everything I can to look out for you. And that starts with being smart about our family's financial future.
Welcome to Cover Direct, Canada's most trusted direct life insurance provider. How can I help?
Hi, I'd like to get a quote for family life insurance, please.
If you're a Canadian resident aged 18 to 70, you can apply for up to $1.5 million of coverage and help give your family some peace of mind.
That's great.
You won't need a medical or blood test to be approved. There are just a few health and lifestyle questions.
Sounds good.
If you chose $100,000 of coverage, it could be as little as $9.66 a month for the first year. That's just 32 cents a day.
That's less than I thought. And that money could pay for the mortgage for him one day.
Cover Direct Family Life Insurance is exclusively available from us. You can't buy it anywhere else.
I'll do it.
The smart way to protect your family's future is to get Cover Direct. To get a quote today, call our friendly Canadian team at 1-844-990-3342 or visit coverdirect.ca.
Do you need financing for your business? Get up to $800,000 in less than 24 hours from Merchant Growth. Apply online today and get your no-obligation quote. Trusted by over 10,000 businesses, Merchant Growth is Canada's leader for convenient business financing. Apply now at merchantgrowth.ca.
Bar none, there's nothing else better than Auto Trader.
Knowing they're Canadian, I think absolutely is a cherry on top.
That definitely changes the game for me.
It's been around for 50 years, and it's still the best place to buy or sell a car. The answer is Auto Trader.
Huh. We've already got tons of WestJet points.
Yeah?
I'm booking it.
Your next travel story is waiting. Make it happen with the all-new WestJet Rewards.
The Silverado Trail Boss. And a little work. And a little play. And a truck that says no to nothing. And Chevrolet.
Truck Month is on now at Chevrolet. Get 0% financing for up to 72 months on select 2025 Silverado models or visit your dealer for lease offers.
And Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
The Ottawa Charge make their maiden voyage to the finals.
What a moment!
Where they'll square off with the defending champs.
Minnesota Magic in overtime! Winner takes all.
The PWHL Finals, only on TSN.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Brian Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star. Brendan Shanahan out in Toronto. And Shanahan's issued a statement himself, and he referenced the rebuild that he had to take over when he got here, and that it was an honor to be here for 11 years, that he's from here, he was raised here. But he said in the end, ultimately I was here to deliver and win a Stanley Cup, and did not do that. And what I found interesting is the beginning of it, he said, he showed up at the meeting today, and that's when he was told, the Leafs are moving on. So, again, not one of those, not that it matters, but not a mutually agreed, I think Shanahan wanted to stay here and finish the job. And I like that part of the attitude. You don't want to see anyone lose their gig, but Brendan will be fine. I mean, he's Hall of Famer. He's been doing this for a long time. He's going to get another gig. If he wants it, he will get another one in the NHL. I have no doubt about that. But I kind of was thinking about that today. I was chatting with somebody about the idea of Marner or Tavares or Shanahan, whoever it was going to be, making their case that the reason you really want to stay is just because you desperately want to win. Not for the money, not because it's comfortable, not because it's convenient, not because of the perks or the celebrity.
I've never heard any of them talk like that.
I never have. And, I'm not going to suggest that's exactly what I took out of the Shanahan announcement there or statement, but he did, he didn't try to run from it. He wasn't saying, I'm ready for a change. He's like, no, they didn't want me anymore, and I didn't win, but that's why I came here. I wanted to win, and it didn't get done. And I appreciate that. And again, I'm not expecting to hear that from Marner if he leaves, but it would be nice. It'd be nice for him to say, man, I really wish we won over the 9 years, as opposed to I needed to change.
They don't ever talk like that. I've said it all season, and you brought it up in the past, Hayes. They don't ever talk about their burning desire. Only job this year is cup or butt. They don't talk like that, which just makes you wonder. And by the way, for all the losers out there that are sending me messages saying that I'm taking shots personally, I don't take any shots personally. I just kind of make assessments, and as an analyst, you call what you view or what you see. So I don't take personal shots. I have nothing against any of these guys. But them together as a hockey team, I have to make assessments about that. I don't know them personally. I don't take this personally. So for you losers, that's not what I do. Who's
yelling at you? Are people stopping you on the street?
No, it just people on Twitter. They're like, it seems like O-Dog's got a problem with Marner. Personal shot.
No.
And I'm just like, what are you talking about, man?
O-Dog, everybody gets that. Everybody that writes
I'm an analyst.
About this
I'm
team.
on TV talking about guys that go on TV and play hockey, and that's what I do. That's it.
Yeah. No.
So personal shots, I have no idea what the hell you're talking. I would probably get along great with these guys.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that, O-Dog, but
that might be a stretch.
That might be a stretch, but
that is.
I will say this though about that.
Why don't you think I would get along with
I don't know. You probably would. You guys would connect. Alumni, alumni jackets. They
Trust
like to
me,
play golf.
I'm a guy's guy. I'm a hockey player at heart. I would get along great with them.
I think you're probably right.
Maybe.
Go ahead, Dave.
No, I just the point you guys were making about not hearing these guys express a burning desire to win. We reported in the Star last summer that as Kyle Dubis was leaving the building, that was one of his observations, that Kyle Dubis, the guy who defended these guys and went to bat for these guys and gave these guys all the money they wanted, at the end of it all, Kyle Dubis made the assessment that these guys didn't care enough about losing. It didn't hurt them enough. It didn't leave a gaping wound in their heart that made them want to come back and win.
We just mentioned that, Feschuk, the other day. It's so easy for them to just get in front of the camera and be like, it was a crappy game. That's it. I'm going to the World Championships. Yeah. We got good chemistry. We love each other. See you later. We got to work on our structure. We'll get them next year. It's just so easy. And what I found amazing is, and it's just I pick up, I look at stupid things. I don't know. That's just what I do. But we posted a video of 9 years of kind of the same speeches from all the guys. Pretty crazy. In 9 years for 5 different guys, not one scratch. Not one scratch on their face.
Right. Yeah.
How could you possibly think that you're winning a Stanley Cup if all of your best players, 5 times 9 is 45. 45 different appearances, not one scratch? That's impossible, man.
That should be impossible. Yet it is possible, and that explains why they're in the situation they're in. Because you don't get a lot of scratches during the regular season, right? You get some, but you don't get a lot, or you can avoid them and still win. Can't avoid them in the playoffs and win.
And maybe that's, to me, when I think about, Shanahan's biggest mistakes, and there were a handful that got him to where they are, but, hearing everybody talk about, they can't survive the pressure cooker of Toronto. I know people believe that. I don't believe it. But I actually believe that the position they were put in by Shanahan to be the thing he wanted them to be clutch, to be big game players. He kept insisting they could be that. He talked about killer instinct 4 years ago when they choked it up against Montreal, and he said they could acquire it. They could develop it from within. I actually think that pressure to miscasting these guys as something they were not, which is big game players, that might have been the biggest mistake. Mm-hmm. Like, believing these guys could be something that a lot of us 4 or 5 years ago thought they could never be.
Or using the same brush to paint them all in that light. I think that also was a part of it, because I was watching that clip. It was during COVID, so it was over Zoom, and I was after the Habs loss, and he referenced all these other great players who have had to pick up the scar tissue across along the way, and we know who they are. Famously, we all use it: Steve Yzerman and Alex Ovechkin. We've heard them all. We all know it. But you'll notice with Steve Yzerman and the Red Wings, there weren't 3 other guys that did it for 13 years. There was one guy. And with Ovechkin, it wasn't, it's Ovechkin and these 3 other guys. That was it. Like, you had to evaluate 1 or 2 of them, you would think, and look at it and say, we got that wrong. That guy's not wired this way. That guy actually
won't. Everyone asked me for the last 11 years, Brian. And when you just talk about that transaction of Brendan Shanahan being the missing link in Detroit, how Brendan Shanahan, the president, didn't try to acquire or bring in more Brendan Shanahans. And as a president, and let me just quantify this by saying, this guy's a friend of mine. He was my line mate in Hartford. He's a friend of mine. And we talked a lot. We never talked about hockey. We occasionally talk about the odd player, but I got a job at TSN. He had a job with the Leafs, and I didn't say, hey, that guy, I don't like that guy. Our conversations never went like that. But that's what the fans ask me all the time. How come Brendan Shanahan never, his view of the game is not the same as when he was a player? And why didn't a Brendan Shanahan come in here? That's the biggest question people had.
It's a great question. And, we referenced in modern times, it's that Matthew Tkachuk to Florida trade. Well, the original one was Shanahan to Detroit.
Thank you very much.
That was the original one. The original Matthew Tkachuk was Shanahan. Only he was better, probably, like the way he played and what he was capable of doing.
He was a 50-goal man that had 200 penalty minutes.
Yeah. It's
not hard to find.
600 goals in his
hard
career.
To find.
Very hard to find. And stepped in there and brought a completely different approach and different attitude and helped them, which was already a great team, get over the top. Now, we're also in a different era. To be fair, it's not 1996 anymore where 5 teams spend the most money and everyone else can't pay. That's not the world we live in anymore. It's maybe more difficult now. It probably is more difficult. You can't just buy up a team. You can't just find different pieces and be willing to pay them. So we're definitely living in a different era. But listen, the Shana plan and the Shanahan era, time is going to have to pass before you truly evaluate it compared to other eras. But it's with this team, when you consider the bar, it's going to be revered, I think, over time. Like, I think we're in the midst of right now the shock and the embarrassment of Game 7, and I think fans collectively have had enough of the last 9, 10, 11 years of just not being good enough or not quite being there or hearing the same thing after every season. But I was saying that with what was on the line Game 7, that those players and this team could have simply met the bar that has been established for the last 40 years, and that's the conference final. Like, that's where the 93 and 94 team went. That's where the 99 and 02 team went. There's a lot of teams in this league, or a handful anyway, that would laugh at that's the bar. Obviously, Florida being one of them, Tampa, Vegas, Edmonton probably now, maybe Boston, Colorado. There's, we know the teams that would look at that and say that's not acceptable. I could run off 15 teams right now that would do anything for that to be the bar, considering what they've gone through the last 10 or 15 years. But that's what it's been. Like, it's just reaching the conference final would have been considered a remarkable accomplishment. And the fact that they were knocking on the door for quite some time, I think over time people look back on the Shanahan era and say, well, compared to the Burke era, it was a great one.
Yes.
You know, compared to a couple of other eras in there, it was an amazing era. And it was, but it's also, there's like some Stockholm syndrome in this, Dave, that because they never win the cup, and it almost feels impossible to even dream of that if you're a Leaf fan, this will probably be an era that may be revered, especially if it gets worse. You know, if in 2 or 3 years they're in a worse position, then the Shanahan era will actually get even more love once we move into the future.
Yeah, well, it's going to be hard to get better quickly, right? Like, if you're losing people for nothing in free agency, thanks to your terrible asset management of key assets, that's difficult to recover from, especially when you've traded away first-round picks in 2025, 2026, and 2027 in deals that were win-now, you know, deals. That's how you sort of slide into a bad place in this league, right? If you're not careful. Now, there's also reasons to believe that you
Hey,
could...
that's today happening is why you move first-round picks, because everyone's philosophy is I might not be around when it comes time to pay the piper for those picks not being here. That's why every GM does that, or every president. They're like, we won't be here to deal with the fallout of first-round picks in 2027, so you got to pull the trigger on it to try to make your team better.
Right, but, you know, Shanahan was supposed to be the guy that was the guardian of that, the guardian of the organization, the guardian of the big picture, right? And he sort of, I think, probably he realized the writing was on the wall, and he was up against it, and he had to win now as much as anybody, as much as maybe more than the GM who just got here and can't be really culpable for a lot of the stuff that's going on.
I think that's valid. I think both those are true. All right, I've got my 5 highlights of the Shanahan era, 5 lowlights. We'll come back with one of the 5. We'll get to the other 5 into the 5 p.m. hour. We'll spread these out. You tell me, I'll let you pick. Do you want to go glass half full to start, glass half empty? Hold that thought. Hold that thought. Think on it. We'll kickstart these lists. Frankie Corrado coming up, Pierre LeBrun later this afternoon. Kevin Harlan will join us. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
That's just a preview of the things you're gonna get. Yeah.
First, we won J.D. Power, ranking Ram the #1 brand in new vehicle quality. Then we won 2025 Motor Trend Truck of the Year. Now, we're throwing our weight around even more with the new Ram Heavy Duty. Well, you know what they say. You win some, you win some. And every win is inspired by the ones who drive us. Ram, built to serve.
How can I just let you walk away? Just let you leave with
this spring at Canadian Tire. You'll find over 1,000 deals each week, up to 40% off. So while it's not always easy, we've gotten used to goodbyes. Discover this week's deals online or in the flyer.
We're all busy, but sometimes we put off the important things, like helping to provide financial protection for your family if the worst happens.
Welcome to Cover Direct. You're speaking to Sally. How can I help you?
Hi. Your commercial for family life insurance says I can get coverage over the phone with no complicated forms.
Yes, that's right. You can arrange everything in just one phone call. Would you like a quick quote?
Yes, please.
Okay. If you're a Canadian resident aged 18 to 70, you can apply for up to $1.5 million in coverage and help give your family some peace of mind.
Great.
You won't need a medical or a blood test to get approved. You just need to answer a few health and lifestyle questions. I just need to ask your age and smoker status, please.
I'm 32 and a non-smoker.
Okay. If you choose $100,000 of coverage, it could be as little as $10.87 a month for the first year. That's just 36 cents a day.
That's less than I thought. And with $100,000 coverage, my wife could pay the mortgage and some other expenses.
For greater peace of mind, you can choose to add coverage for critical illness and your children.
Good to know.
Family life insurance is exclusive to Cover Direct. You can't buy it anywhere else.
Sounds great. I'll go right ahead.
We're Canada's most trusted direct life insurance provider. Our life insurance specialists have helped thousands of Canadians protect their family's financial future. Plus, our service is rated excellent on Trustpilot. Our prices start from just $10.87 per month, with up to $1.5 million of coverage. To get a free, no-obligation quote, call one of our trusted insurance advisors today at 1-844-990-4284 or visit coverdirect.ca.
Check this out. The phone is the key.
Like you, the redesigned Tucson doesn't stop. You got places to go and stories to tell.
Sleeping like a baby. Thank goodness for baby mode.
And with more than 9 out of 10 Tucsons sold in the last decade still on the road, WA keeps you going.
They're duking it out on the quiz show where knowing it all pays big. Gen Xers will come out swinging.
Let's do it.
But will Gen Z beat them to the punch?
Let's go.
Will the millennials throw in their towels? Or will the boomers have them all on the ropes?
All right. Britney Spears.
Barbenheimer.
Beyonce.
Who's gonna win it all?
Lily Singh hosts the #1 Canadian game show, Battle of the Generations. Wednesday on CTV. Stream next day on Crave.
It's a knockout of a season.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, Frankie Corrado in about 20 minutes. Breaking news this hour. Brendan Shanahan has been let go by the Maple Leafs, no longer the president of the club after 11 years. His contract was up at the end of next month, and they had a board meeting this morning, and Shanahan was made aware that he will not be returning. So now the door is open for him to go anywhere. And he's, the Islanders asked for permission to speak with him. They were granted that permission. That was clearly a sign. We talked about it yesterday. Never a good sign that the team's going to keep you around when they allow you to speak to somebody else. And we'll see if Shanahan decides.
That was pointing the obvious.
Yeah, it was
if you allow someone, you're done.
Yeah, it's over. It's over. And Shanahan, I think, would have known that.
Yes.
So, we'll see what happens with him if he takes that job, if he gets that job on Long Island, or if he goes somewhere else. But 11 years, man, there's been a lot of ups and downs. And I've got my personal 5 highlights of the Shanahan era. I've got the 5 lowlights. Oh, you're generally a very rosy and optimistic guy. And you see that. Do you want me to go with the highlights, the lowlights? What do you want me to start with? Because we'll spread this out. We can spread it out.
Let's just do your lowlights then.
You want to start with the lowlights?
Because then later in the show we can be happier and talk about the good things that he did.
Okay. Now this is okay. I got the 5-pack, the lowlights, the Shanahan era. Now there's a variety of different things here, right? Some are very specific to a game, to a player, to a trade, to kind of a scenario in general. Okay, and these are subjective. These are mine. You guys can debate me on this. Number 5. This may surprise you, but number 5, I have Game 7 versus the Panthers 2025. I have the Game 7 from Sunday night as a low light. Them getting embarrassed, jerseys being thrown on the ice, just the mood in there, people getting booed, them saluting the crowd and getting booed off the ice at the end. It was not positive. So I got the game itself. You could argue maybe Game 5 could be in there, the series, but I have Game 7 versus the Panthers at number 5.
That was an ugly situation in there.
Yeah.
And they were panning him in the box. As soon as that one, I think it was Luosterainen that tipped one in past Joseph Woll, you could see Shanny's face. It was almost like it all came together at that moment, and he probably realized that it, not just this game is over, all of it was over.
Yeah,
that's the look that I saw.
I agree with you. I was watching that because their TVs are up there in the press box. You know it, Dave, and they were showing them a lot more than they had been earlier in the series and earlier in the playoffs.
Yeah, he'd been hiding pretty successfully.
He had done a pretty good job of staying out of there, staying out of the way as much as possible. And that's another thing. Never did media. This is off track, but he hasn't been on our show in 5 years. Like, not that it matters, but he used to come on. It should. Like, the president of the club should probably do media every once in a while. No wonder why the players have no accountability or ever have to do anything or ever have to talk or what. But anyway, Game 7 versus the Panthers at number 5. Number 4, I have the Nazem Kadri trade. I have the Kadri trade at 4. Now, at the moment, at the time, it was crazy. It was loud. He had been suspended for the second time. Really stupid suspension. Tavares was here, and it was, well, if JT's here, it's Austin and JT. Nas is going to be a third-line guy. Can't fit in. But this one got worse with time, and now it's one of the worst trades in the history of the franchise. There's no other way to put it.
There is no question. I mean, you had a guy that was needed. Like, he was the Shanahan going to Colorado in some fashion. Yes. But mind you, this first year there, he got suspended for the whole playoffs.
He did in Colorado as well.
But I don't care. Like, the way these guys were playing hockey, I told you guys the story. Bobby Mack was like, that's probably it for Kadri. And I said that there's just no way. Not only because I thought he was a great player and he was physical, because he had an unbelievable contract.
He had a great contract, $4.5 million for a few more years.
$4.5 million for a few more years. It was insane.
And, Shanahan obviously always wanted guys that wanted to be here. No one wanted it more than Nas. Nobody wanted to be a Maple Leaf more than Kadri, except for possibly my guy at number 3, and that is the number 3 lowlight of the Shanahan era, letting Zach Hyman walk.
Oh.
Like, that guy, there's no reason why he ever left for $5 million a year. And then they were signed, they kept Kerfoot, and Hull was here, and Mrazek was getting paid. Like, it was like, what are you guys doing with that money? How is he not? Like, the other guys, you got to pay, got to keep. But Hyman's where you cut it off and say, no, thank you?
It made no sense because, like when Nas has talked about how he felt he got traded because he wasn't a Dubis guy, right? He was more of a Lou guy. When Dubis took over, Dubis really didn't have his back, and so out the door to save $1 million and bring back Kerfoot a little cheaper. But the weird thing about Hyman was a Dubis guy.
Yeah.
Like, Dubis actually plucked him from obscurity as a Florida draft pick and brought him here, and he was a massive success, and he is something they haven't had since he left, to your point, Hayes, and they've regretted it ever since, so they should regret it.
Yep. All right, so the 5 lowlights of the Shanahan era. At number 5, Game 7 on Sunday against the Panthers. Number 4, the Kadri deal. Number 3, the Hyman walking for nothing in free agency. Number 2, blowing a 3-1 lead to the Habs. That one rings out more than all the other losses for me because of who you were playing against.
No?
What's that?
That's got to be one.
Number 1, I don't think will surprise you. It might. It's not a specific moment. So, you got to expand your imagination for these lists a little bit, but I don't think number 1 will shock you. It may. You may argue with it. You may argue that this should be number 1. I wouldn't be offended if you thought blowing a 3-1 lead to your biggest rival when you ran away with the season that year and it was right in front of you and you finally were going to break through and you just fall apart in the fashion that you did, should be at number 1. But I have blowing the 3-1 lead to the Habs at number 2 on my list. And I'll just throw out number 1. You guys can react. Contract negotiations with the core 4. That's number 1. And for me, like, we can talk about Dubis and Lou. We can talk about the players. We can talk about the salary cap. We can talk about the agents and the power that they have. I'm sorry. When I look back on the Shanahan era from a negative standpoint, him allowing them to get the deals they got are absolutely outrageous. Like, there's no excuse why is Mitch Marner even a free agent right now? How did you not demand he signs an 8-year deal? Like, how is Austin Matthews not wrapping up his 8th year of that second contract at less money than it is? He's already into year 2 of the next one, getting crazy money.
It's because that Austin Matthews is the best goal scorer in the game. And he basically said it's going to be my way or I'm not going to sign here. That was the alternative.
And he was a restricted free agent. I hear you.
I know, but I'm just saying that's probably how that transaction would have went down.
Maybe. Wouldn't you think McDavid would have done that? They got him to sign for 8 years.
Dude, I have no idea, but I'm just guessing on how those negotiations went.
I hear you, and I'm sure that was his stance. I'm not disputing the players were, but
it
Shanahan
was like 4-year
extension,
extension,
no.
or I'm going to request a trade to Arizona or out west. So take it or leave it. That's my stance.
Well, then if you allow that to happen, then you get everything that's happened since.
Yeah, and I think, Doug, I think that's where, he talked about restoring this franchise to prominence, that it's got to mean something to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. Like, that's where you had to have that speech, where it's like, you either want to be a Toronto Maple Leaf and bring us a cup, or you don't.
Okay,
and I got to know who's in and who's out.
If you're going to have that stance and you want to play the role where it's like you got to have the true belief in being a Leaf, you also got to have the stones to pull the trigger and move the player. If
yes.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, Austin. Austin, and it could have started way back in Minnesota where William Nylander's deal got done at the midnight hour, where it was like, okay, you want to piss around like this? We're going to trade you.
That's where it should have started.
Yeah, and that's where Shanahan, if it was Lou still in charge at that point, I think a lot of people I talked to in the industry around that time said Lou would have said, you know what, go play in the KHL in a year and call me. See for a year and call me. Like, see how you like Russia. It wouldn't even have been a trade. It would have said, go play in Russia and see how you like it. See how you like Russia, and then get back to us if you want to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. Like, it had to mean something. And that's what I think a lot of people in the industry found the most frustrating about Shanahan's entire reign, is that he never got in a room with those guys, to our knowledge, and said, there's a pie here, fellas, and you guys divide it up among yourselves. But if we want to win, it can't be 50% of the salary cap or 52% of the salary cap. We've got to be smart here about how we, deal with this salary cap issue. And it's got to involve you more than it involves your agents.
Yep. And it didn't, and by all accounts, didn't happen. And now we're in the scenario we're in. All right, hour 2 coming up. The highlights, they're coming too. The Shanahan era. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Winner takes all.
The PWHL Finals, only on TSN.
FanDuel held a shooting contest to promote its new MySpend tool. MySpend makes it easy to view your deposit and bet history all in one place. Because betting without knowing how much you're spending is like shooting in the dark. See the whole picture. Make FanDuel's MySpend tool part of your system and stop shooting in the dark.
A century. 100 years. It's a story written by Canadians. Every worker, every dealership, every family that chose us. From the highways to the back roads, school drop-offs and Saturday skates. You've put your trust in us. And it's because of you we've put millions of vehicles on Canadian roads. So as we mark 100 years, this is a thank you. Because you didn't just ride along, you drove us.
AutoTrader has the most cars.
I knew they had a lot of cars, but I didn't know they had the most cars.
I'm literally on every night because you never know when a deal can just like pop up.
Everything is there. You'll always find what you're looking for with AutoTrader. The answer is AutoTrader.
Our new home, somewhere we can build a life. And I'm gonna do everything I can to look out for you. And that starts with being smart about our family's financial future.
Welcome to Cover Direct, Canada's most trusted direct life insurance provider. How can I help?
Hi, I'd like to get a quote for family life insurance, please.
If you're a Canadian resident aged 18 to 70, you can apply for up to $1.5 million of coverage and help give your family some peace of mind.
That's great.
You won't need a medical or blood test to be approved. There are just a few health and lifestyle questions.
Sounds good.
If you chose $100,000 of coverage, it could be as little as $9.66 a month for the first year. That's just 32 cents a day.
That's less than I thought. And that money could pay for the mortgage for him one day.
Cover Direct Family Life Insurance is exclusively available from us. You can't buy it anywhere else.
I'll do it.
The smart way to protect your family's future is to get Cover Direct. To get a quote today, call our friendly Canadian team at 1-844-990-3342 or visit coverdirect.ca.
Oh, this is cute. Yeah, there's no price on this.
Oh, that's because it's not for sale. We're just vehicle specialists.
But the last place I went sold all kinds of things.
At Fountain Tire, we focus on one thing, your vehicle.
Huh, I like that.
Tires are on, belts replaced, sidecar attached. You're all set.
Great.
And now you can put our stuff back.
The stuff back. Yeah, I'm going to put it back.
Fountain Tire. We're on this road together, Canada.
Drink in more of summer with Tim's new Oreo Mocha Ice Caps. With Oreo in every sip. Perfect for that summer romance you longed for. Or that summer fling with the pool you longed for. Either way, drink in summer with Tim's new Oreo Mocha Ice Caps.
The Hyundai Kona Electric is the all-electric SUV for you. With stylish design, innovative features, and convenient technology. And with up to 420 kilometers of all-electric range, the Hyundai Kona Electric SUV has the power to take you anywhere and keep you going.
The Ottawa Charge make their maiden voyage to the finals.
What a moment.
Where they'll square off with the defending champs.
Minnesota Magic in overtime. Winner takes all.
The PWHL Finals, only on TSN.
This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
One little lesser light that we forgot on the list. It's kind of like a blip, but it was a gong show. The Zamboni driver going into the net.
Yes, that one is in a separate category that doesn't even seem real. You know, like having the Carolina Hurricanes resort to a Zamboni driver, putting on the goaltending equipment and winning the hockey game. I can't even blame Shanahan for that.
Yeah. No,
like,
and that is one of those times where I did have a conversation with Shanny, and I've never heard him so beside himself because I think he was so mad leaving the building, and somebody from Game Ops approached him and said they want to make the Zamboni driver the first star of the game. I think he wanted to just... Can you imagine being that mad, and then they're making this guy the first star of the game?
I guess.
Which I'm sure if he wanted to, he could have said, "Not on my dead body is that guy going to be the first star." But I think he just said, "Go ahead."
I guess at that point you might as well, right? Like really put the dagger in. I don't even remember that. I mean, the idea that he was the first star, but it was the whole story. You know, David Ayers, of course, was the whole story. And you're right. That was one that was reasonable to bring up. And the reason we're doing that, Brendan Shanahan, no longer the president of the Maple Leafs. And now stories are going to come pouring out, right? This is what always happens. After you get a massive, like the king of the county for 11 years, when he leaves, stories start coming out.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just a matter of time. And,
there'll be stories on both ways of both sides of it, where he'll probably want some stories out of some dummies doing dummy things, and who knows what else comes out.
Well, that's a good point too, Dave, and you would know this. Like Shanahan might play the game himself.
Oh yeah,
and start talking about what's going on behind the scenes.
I would
for sure. Hey man, it can be a cutthroat game. I mean, the one on your list, like for your low light list, Hayes, I love the list. I thought it was bang on. The only one I would add would be the debacle that was the departure of Kyle Dubis, because that was on Shanny, right? The idea that you essentially had the GM essentially try a palace coup on you, and essentially try and take the power after you gave the guy his career, and he's Dubis essentially shook down Larry Tannenbaum and the Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment Board, and Shanahan had to fire him. I mean, that was a real setback, because what that did, as you guys know, it was the summer where, it was a very limited window there where if you wanted to move off the core four, and Dubis talked about maybe making a Kachuk-style trade in his last press conference, that was your window to move off the core four, and suddenly you had turmoil in the front office. You had to bring in Tree Living.
I don't think you can describe it as turmoil, Dave. You brought in Brad Tree Living, I think, 3 weeks later, and I think it was almost a blessing in disguise.
That I would agree with. I understand what you're saying, Dave, but I do think moving off Dubis in the end was actually a positive for this organization.
But it was a disaster in the moment is what I'm saying.
It was, but I would say I wonder if Shanahan would view that as, again, I don't know all the details from behind the scenes, but that he sniffed it out and he caught him and he won in the end. because the board clearly sided with Shanahan.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
How was that I'm not trying to get pissy here, but how was that a disaster from Shanahan's perspective when this guy tried to pull that stunt?
Well, the disaster was, look, no, I mean, yeah, Shanahan won the power struggle, obviously.
Yeah.
Shanahan had the right friends that backed him up and called out Dubis for what was going on here. But my point, guys, was it was an unnecessary and a massive distraction at a moment where you had to be making hard decisions about whether you wanted to keep these guys around or not, because, Marner's no trade was kicking in, and we all know the story about why it was a big window for making a decision. Do you want to continue with the core four? And essentially lock them in to the situation they're in now, where you're going to, in all likelihood, lose Mitch Marner for nothing, or maybe a modest return in a sign-and trade. So,
just a refresher here, Marner's no movement clause kicked in only on his last year of his deal.
It was the summer of 2023,
the last 2
right?
years.
Am I right? Yeah.
Yes, because they had bought up free agency years, right, at that point. And that was you can't have a no move or a no trade until you're eligible for free agency as a player. So that's why Elias Pettersson is kicking in this summer, right? Pettersson's deal is going to kick in as of July 1st. The Vancouver Canucks are dealing with the exact same thing right now.
And let's face it, guys, Dubis was Shanahan's handpicked guy.
Yeah.
And to have that kind of essential betrayal and that kind of a falling out, man. I mean, that left a scar, guys. Let's not underplay that.
I'm sure it would, and it should. Like, if you're Shanahan, you had to be looking at that guy thinking, really? Like this, I brought you from Sault Ste. Marie and brought you in when no one knew who he was.
Buy a gratitude journal, pal.
Yeah, and then you try to basically pull off a coup, like you said. It was like a Game of Thrones move that got sniffed out. And yet, Dubis, the reason he probably had the courage to do it was he knew Pittsburgh was in his back pocket.
Right.
That's exactly why he pulled the stunt, because he's like, I've got that kind of dough and that kind of power waiting. I might as well see if I can get it here. If not, I'm just going to go get it there.
Right. Is Dubis not the GM of the World Championship team?
Yes.
So Canada just lost to Denmark in the quarterfinals. Dubis has literally never won anything. I'm not trying to hammer at Dubis because I like him. But why not? I actually kind of like him. I like him personally. It's nothing personal against him, but never won anything in the O, never won anything in the NHL.
I think this is his second year being the GM over there.
And they just lost with Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon and Binnington and net. They just lost to Denmark in the quarterfinals. Wow. That is shocking. That is I can't believe that. I mean, we've been on the air, obviously, and it's been up on TSN.
Wow.
Dude, I thought they were going to win every game 8-0.
I was fully expecting that myself. And credit to Denmark, because they've done this a couple times in the tournament. Like, they've stunned teams a couple times. And this is as big as it gets. Like, this is the kind of thing in Denmark that'd be the biggest hockey story in their history, possibly.
And a home game for them, right? Home game for them.
Exactly. And you're beating Canada, man. With Sidney Crosby. Like, everything I'm reading from over there is wherever Sid goes, it's like the parting of the sea. Like, I can't believe he's here. We got to go see this guy, Sidney Crosby. Man, that is a shocking development. Possibly equally as shocking, the Jays won in 11 innings today, and they swept the Padres. And they've scored, 24 runs in the series? They beat the Padres with a 24-6 aggregate.
Wow.
That is more shocking. Throw that poll up. More shocking. Jays win 24-6 in an aggregate sweep of the Padres, or Canada loses to Denmark.
Crazy.
I'm not sure I know what the correct answer would be. Maybe Frankie Corrado can tell us that. Here he is, our main man, Frankie, our TSN hockey analyst. Frankie, go ahead and answer that for us. The Jays sweeping the Pods or Canada losing to Denmark?
Canada losing to Denmark.
Okay.
Come on.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, man, that's crazy stuff. But I don't know. Like, there's, Latvia beat Canada at the World Juniors. Like, it's not like this stuff it can happen. It's just these one-game things. You never know. You get into a certain situation, the game becomes tight, and it's like, it comes down to one mistake, one goal, and there you go. That's what happens.
Crazy, man. Because there was so much buildup, and this is when the tourney really starts for Canada. whether it's at the Worlds, the Olympics, the World Juniors, once you get to the quarterfinal, right? Like that, the group stage is fun, but you know they're going to win. You know they're getting through. They're likely going to have a very good matchup. But, yeah, Canada out of the Worlds, losing in the quarters to Denmark. The big news of the day, obviously, Brendan Shanahan is not here. You played for the Leafs when he was, the king of the county. What is your reaction to the Leafs deciding to move off Shanahan?
I mean, it's been a long time, so and they haven't won, so you can kind of see where the road was going to go here. But I will say this: like I was in that organization year one of Babcock, and there was a lot of turmoil, rocky years prior to that, previous to that. Like, say what you want about the way things went with the Core Four. He turned that organization into a very stable operation for a long time, and it had been nothing close to that. Whether it was, Lou or Babs, for whatever faults those guys had, it became a safe environment for players to play in and succeed on an individual level. Did they win? No. They made the playoffs a lot, though. And their young players got better and turned into, superstars around the league. Like, there was a lot of things that went well. Yes, the ultimate goal didn't happen. They didn't deviate from the plan. But they weren't going to deviate from the plan, because that was one thing Shanahan made very clear from the moment he got there. Like, I am sticking to a plan, and for better or worse, like that's what he did. And so he had I think he should be remembered more for bringing, stability back to the Maple Leafs organization more than anything else.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm not sure everyone will see it that way because, again, if you're the man at the top, you're expected to win. Now, people are starving for it. But I do think that there's a lot of validity to that there was consistency. But he also made this team run differently. And he took a lot of his P's and Q's from Lou Lamoriello. It was his decision to not let Joe Bowen and Jim Ralph on the plane anymore, and media not on the plane anymore, and not doing this and not doing that. All this kind of stuff where it was like this ironclad, and you referenced it from a player's view, like protecting the players, and that's what Shanahan, I'm sure his explanation would be. I'm doing this all for the players. I'm curious if you think it will change with Shanahan out. Do you think it should change? Do you think this team needs to open up more? Do they need to be available more? Does, Shanahan, again, he hasn't done interviews in years. The guy's the president of the club. You never heard from the guy.
You know what, Hayes? To a certain degree, yes, but not to the point where it was prior to Shanahan coming in, where it felt like, it was open season at times on certain guys. Like, it shouldn't necessarily be open season on Matthews and Nylander. It should be fair. It should be critical when it has to be. Like that, no one's going to dispute that. But I think, I had a few experiences where, I think there was one article I did with Alter where it kind of blew up, where I said something like the coach, if the coach doesn't like you, you don't play. But those kinds of things were just so few and far between around the organization. Like they did do a good job of making sure that, it is a little bit of a dome for the players. Now, the other elements that you brought up there, like, your local media guys that call the game, they're not asking those questions. You know what I mean? So like you can be a little more lenient in that regard, but it's, Toronto, there's a lot of volume of media members and outlets and everything's based here. Right. So I think there does need to be that element of, okay, we're going to protect these guys. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be as ironclad. Like there's certain members that it's just like they're not asking the hard questions. They're not out there to shine a negative light on anyone.
Frankie, Hayes was bringing up the contracts negotiations in his most hated things about the Shanahan era list.
It wasn't listed as hated. It was lowlights.
I brought up the idea of, there was an era or a time in the game where good players didn't want to play in Toronto. Am I hearing something? Or
is there a flush going on there, Frankie? What are you up to?
Is there like a jetliner flying by you? Or
no, what? They're practicing how to shovel the ice right now.
Oh my God!
So I'm sure this is going to be on Hayes' list of things that he absolutely hates. So let me
that'll be banned. Nobody allowed on when they're in a rink.
How do you need to practice that? Like,
I don't know, man.
Down twice.
That's a better question.
Yes.
Shoveling up and down the ice at
down
5
and back twice, and you're done.
Right now.
Yeah.
Try to be in the try to line up so you're all getting a different piece, and let's move on.
Okay.
Anyway, to my question. There was a time where good players, Canadian markets, all that talk. Do you think the contract negotiations or the idea of just the players leaving that, I don't know, Shanny, Dubis, the organization just couldn't stomach any of them leaving because they'd finally acquired some top-end talent and they had the ability to lock them up? Or what is your take on the contract negotiations of how the top-end players for the Leafs have been handled the last bunch of years?
You know what? It's the fear of the unknown. Like, what happens if you don't retain your really talented players and they go somewhere else and they have success? Because there was a track record of that happening here. Phil Kessel moved on. You had to trade Kessel. He won 2 cups. Tyler Bozak moved on. He won a cup. Nazem Kadri moved on. He won a cup. Like, there's been a track record of this happening, and you have supremely talented players. And a lot of people would tell you, I'll always bet on the talent. I'll bet on, those guys being able to find a way to break through because they can do it. And then the unknown is like, well, if you move on for those guys and you've built this, stable operation that's good year after year and making the playoffs, what happens if it fails? How do you answer that question at the end of the year when another guy moves on and wins a Stanley Cup? Like if that was Marner or Nylander or whoever. I think, that fear of the unknown had to play a huge part in it. And the other part is like those guys, they were willing to bet on those talented players finding a way to break through. But let's also, we also have to say that the organization was very willing to, kind of hedge their bets by signing these guys and saying, we're going to be progressive. We're going to be proactive. The cap's going to go up. Well, it didn't go up for 4 years, and everyone had to deal with that. But I think with the way that front office was thinking at the time, they were trying to be ahead of the curve. And unfortunately, the curve kind of bit them back in a way that, they couldn't really maneuver anymore. So they were stuck with what they had. But it always, for me, comes down to, well, what happens if these guys move on and they succeed and we don't? How do we answer that question?
Frankie, I think one of the key moments in Shanahan's tenure here came 4 years ago when they blew the 3-1 series lead to the Canadiens, and Shanahan came out and said, we lack killer instinct. He brought that phrase into the vernacular Leafland, and he insisted at that time that they could acquire killer instinct. They could develop killer instinct internally and maybe externally too. Maybe they could bring in some guys with a little more killer instinct. But he made the human nature bet that you could change these guys, make them something they had not been. And to this day, I think we all have seen what we've seen when it comes to that category. How do you feel about that as somebody who's been in a room? Was that crazy of him to believe he could change these guys into killers?
It's not crazy to believe that because you don't know until you do it. Like you're not a killer until you are. You're not a winner until you're a winner. Like, there is an evolution there where guys have to find a way to become something that they haven't necessarily been. But you almost look back over the years and you say, well, why didn't you surround them with guys that have killer instinct? Why didn't you surround them with guys that have won? Like, you try and make moves over the years because you have this young nucleus of players. Maybe the priority should have been, we need to bring in guys that have been branded and labeled champions. Stanley Cup champions.
One of those guys, Frankie, was Patrick Marlo of all guys.
The main guy.
Right.
The first guy.
Yeah.
He was one of the ones that wanted to just you follow that guy and what he does. I was like, you got to be.
Well, I mean, like that's a great example. That's a San Jose Sharks team that was the, decade ago version of what this team is, but not even, because those guys, they went to a cup final and they were going fairly deep into playoffs. And these guys didn't do that. And that's not to, disparage Patrick Marlo and the career he had, but
but the kicker was you had to give him the third year because he insisted on it, and then it just all went to hell. And then we know what happened after that.
Well, and you know what else I think was happening with that? I think older guys around the league who hadn't won saw how skilled these guys are and saw the operation that the Leafs were running and said, I might be able to attach myself to that and win because these guys are really good. And, McDavid and Draisaitl get that right now. But with the way things have gone the last little while, I can't honestly say that veteran guys who haven't won would look at this group and say, I'm going to attach myself potentially to a championship there. Like there's way too much runway now where that conversation has changed. Whereas, 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was so optimistic because these guys were so talented and so good in the regular season. It's not that right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, Max Pacioretty notwithstanding, I guess, right? He jumped on and he was hoping to help them win. But you're right. 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, it was like, I got to get in there. I got to get in there, and I got to be the guy that's riding shotgun with these guys. But that is the truth. I mean, the Marlo deal, that one could have come up on the lowlights. That they had to trade, they had to get rid of the contract. That pick turned into Seth Jarvis. Carolina just said, fine, we'll take Marlo's one-year deal because you don't know how to negotiate with anybody. And they absolutely sewered themselves, the Maple Leafs. And Marlo, he had a really good first year when he was here. Really good player, good pro, by all accounts, good guy. But, yeah, not a winner.
Oh, and they loved him, too, right? They were at the house all the time.
Always loved, that's the whole
thing. The Marlo family. But
Marlo took them under his wing.
And you can do the history lesson, Hayes, right? And say, like, this move was wrong, that move was wrong. Having been in the organization at that time, it felt like there was like a little bit of an odor on some of the guys who had been under the previous administration, where it was almost like we just have to turn a corner and move these guys out and bring in other guys that are fresh and new, where it's like you almost didn't have to label them that way. You just had to evaluate what actually are there. Like Tyler Bozak moved on to St. Louis. They loved him there. And he won a Stanley Cup, and he was slotted perfectly. Say what you want about Phil. Like, I get it. It was probably time to move on. Like Nazem Kadri, we talk about it all the time. But, like, maybe you just had to have an individual conversation on the guys that you're dealing with and not just kind of say, yeah, they were left over from before. We gotta move on from some of these guys. And, the biggest one for me, and I know, like, Dion probably, like, wanted to go try and win somewhere. But I think it would have been so important for Matthews and Marner and Nylander to spend a year playing with Dion Phaneuf. I think that would have done them wonders. He is so good at, like, mentoring young players and relating to them and kind of, just teaching them how to be good pros. But the timing didn't work out. Like, it was time for him to go try and win somewhere.
In this market, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
From the inside, you know him as a great guy and everything, but it was... His time was up, too.
Yeah, let's not forget the Salute Gate happened right as Shanny arrived, right?
Yeah, and that was probably why a lot of that odor that you referenced kind of was hanging around. But, yeah.
I'm sure he would want a mulligan on that.
Yep, I think so. And I think, like, honestly, you even look at, like, the Tavares signing. Like, we don't have to go through all this chronological order. But John represented what these other guys represented. Talent, wanted to be here.
Never won.
Score a goal, but it never won. Like, he wasn't coming here because it was like, man, this guy was a winner. It was, talented, scores, and loves Toronto. And, and that's kind of that's what rings out, throughout the years. Like, an eye for talent, tons of talent. Eye for wanting to be here and wearing the jersey and selling jerseys and making the playoffs, all that kind of stuff. Check.
Yeah, and right now it's like their only option to have that Brendan Shanahan, Matthew Tkachuk transaction is by guys leaving.
Yeah.
And you're going to figure out, and like you're not trading William Nylander for a Matthew Tkachuk type player. That's not happening. You're doing
it's
that
probably
by process
not
of elimination.
available to you. The thing about the Tavares thing, because, like, I agree. Did you need Tavares at the time? No. It was a luxury that you wanted to add, and it was an expensive luxury. But you just missed on Stamkos, and now you have the biggest UFA. Like, is Tavares the biggest UFA in the last 20 years? He honestly might be, considering the way that whole thing went down. And you had the biggest UFA for 2 decades, and he wanted to come to your team, and you were going to shut the door and say, actually, no thanks, after – years where local guys weren't coming. And I remember being a fan of this team as a younger kid thinking, it's all American guys coming here. Like, the Burke years, all that stuff, whatever fans were saying. And now you got, this guy who, like, bleeds blue, who wants to come home, and you're not going to do it after you just missed on Stamkos. So I think they almost, I don't know, felt like they may have had to at that point.
Yeah.
Like, how do you not do it?
I get that. And hindsight is 20/20. And let's not forget who the coach was still at that time too. It was Babcock, and he was pressing. Right, he was pressing. Yeah. He was impatient. He had done his, pain coming for the first year, and then it was like, all right, let's move here. And they were riding a high at that point. Wanted Babcock, got Babcock. Wanted Tavares, well, we'll just take him. We got him too. Like at that point, it was like everything's breaking your way. We want to win the lottery. We won the lottery. Like the first 3 or 4 years, everything went Shanahan's way.
Yeah.
Like everything, everything he wanted, he got, and it was like, wow, this is incredible. Where has this been? How is this possibly not going to lead to significant amounts of success, if not a dynasty? And yet here we are, 5-6 years beyond that point, and we're in the position we're in right now.
It's funny, though, Hayes, because the local guy thing I find interesting, right? Like, let's say that is true. Tavares is a local guy. He wants to come home. You have to have him. But you didn't have to have Zach Hyman. And then you didn't have to have Connor Brown. And you know what I mean? You go down the list, you're like, well, why did we all of a sudden, veer off this thing when it was a priority, 2-3 years before that? Like, why not just stick with it?
Well, exactly. And, Nazem's from London, but GTA. But,
right.
Again, by all accounts, Petrangelo maybe wanted to come. I don't know.
There was a couple year span where all these guys, they knew all their deals were up, and literally all of them went overboard. Like Janssen, overboard. Kapanen, overboard. Hyman, overboard. Connor Brown, overboard. It was like that was the cost of keeping these young guys because it literally all of them. It was like all their in-house depth players, like their so-called deadline acquisition type guys. They all went overboard because of the money.
That was the thing. That was the thing. It was like we're going to get ahead of it. We're going to tack on an extra year, so maybe we could know our cost certainty and the cap's going up, and then. It didn't, and you were stuck with these guys, and it's like we got to get rid of Janssen, got to get rid of Kapanen, and Zach Hyman. We couldn't find a little extra for I don't know, that's where they got caught.
Gets back to my low light in the contracts, which again I get hindsight 20/20, and the player has the right to negotiate and all that kind of stuff, but if you stood strong. And locked in Matthews, Marner, Nylander, if you got them on 8-year deals, even at the money they were making, Matthews would have 2 more years at 11.6. Mitch would have 3 more left at 10.9. Willie would have another year at 6.9. Like if they just held, instead of saying, fine, you can have 5, you can have 6, if they just, as restricted free agents, said, no, McDavid just signed for 8. He's McDavid. You're not. You're signing for 8 years. This is the way it goes. Matthews would have 2 more years left at that money. It's like you can't. That was the issue. Again, now it's the players and the fact that they don't have the DNA, and the fact is you probably have to move off them anyway.
That's the scary thing, Hayes. This could have still somehow worked if they could have played better and been clutch and all that other stuff.
Yeah, well, that's an alternate reality as well. That if they show up for Game 7, guess what? We're in the building for Game 2 tonight. And Shanahan's still
probably not.
If you're gonna peel back the layers of all of it too, you probably go back to the Willie negotiation and say, like, he took it all the way to December 1st, and not a lot of people, I don't think, would be willing to do that around the league. Like, how much did that play into things? And it's like, well, if these guys just saw Willie do it, are they going to do it now? And do we want to deal with that, or we'll just kind of, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, and we're not going to force them to take the 8-year deals. I don't know. Maybe they looked at that and said, like, these guys mean business, and we really, really are depending on these 4 guys. And if we don't have them, and remember how bad Willie was when he came back that year. Like, he couldn't get up and running. And then if your team is serious about winning right now, you can't afford to have a Marner year like that, couldn't afford to have a Matthews year like that. So you swallow it and say, okay, whatever you guys need, just help us win. And guess what? They didn't do it. Like, they didn't hold up their end of the bargain, and the team was very, very friendly to them.
That's very true. And at the end, Shanahan did it for a reason, because he believed in the guys, and they didn't repay him. They took everything they could, and then they got to the Game 7 on Sunday night and said, not going to happen, not doing it.
Yeah.
And it must have just been infuriating for him to watch that. All right, Frankie. What's going on over there? What are they working on now?
Tell me they're still out there running their routes.
Are they running routes with shovels? Or
No, I don't think they're running the routes right now. I think they're done. It's a great rink. We're in Rimouski. Oh, no, they are. Here we go.
Wow. Man, that's a great crew.
Look at that.
They're prepped.
How much practice do you need? It feels like the slap shot scene when they're watching the figure skaters. It's like, what are you doing out
Look
there?
At this. They're running routes like it's a football practice.
I love it. That ice is going to be so perfect. So
if there's if there's a dude with a beard out there, yell, "Move your ass out there and pick it up."
Hey,
is there that guy out there
for you? No, but where's Gardner McDougall's mustache rank in the history of hockey mustaches? It's a pretty good one.
It's a beauty.
It's got to be. It could be Mount Rushmore.
It should.
Like it's Lanny, it's Dave Babich, Gardner McDougall. Like he's got to be up there.
Yeah,
hockey mustaches. Dennis Marouk. Yeah.
All right, Frankie, enjoy yourself. Beautiful Rimouski,
Quebec.
Boys. Say hi to everyone for us.
All right, have a good one.
Très bien.
There he is. Très bien. There's Frankie Corrado. We'll get into what happened in Dallas last night. Just a wild turn of events in the third period, man.
Dude, I'll be honest with you, okay? I shut it off 3-1.
I thought Edmonton was going to win 4-1 empty net.
That's what I did, Hayes. I'm like, Sports Center, here we go. Yep. I want to see 4-2 empty net or whatever. 5-1 Oilers. I didn't check my phone, and I almost crap my pants on my chair. I'm like, this can't be serious. 5 goals in the third?
I had the same reaction twice because I was flipping over to the ball game last night, and the Knicks are up by 13 or what? I'm like, all right, that game's over. I'm done. And once it got to 5-3, I flipped back to TSN thinking, okay, Sports Center, I want to see what's going on. And the game's in overtime. So I'm like, what the hell is happening here? How is it possible that the Pacers pushed it to overtime? It happened twice last night, simultaneously. Dallas and New York. It was insane.
I don't often do this, Hayes, but you guys know the sport better than me. Isn't that collapse at MSG? Like I never put it on the coach, but isn't there some coaching timeouts like strategic that you got to be like, what the hell were you doing?
Well, we'll come back and get into that. You can speak to that, Dave. I can speak to it. I will say this. The Pacers were hitting circus shots. Like, it was insane what they were doing. But at the same time, you got to find a way to stop the bleeding. And then you reset for overtime, and the Knicks actually had a good start to overtime, and it got away from them even more. So more on what happened there. We'll get into that conversation. I got my highlights, my 5-pack, the highlights of the Shanahan era. Okay? We'll get to those. Lots of positivity. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
The Silverado Trail Boss. And a little work. And a little play. And a truck that says no to nothing. And Chevrolet.
Truck Month is on now at Chevrolet. Get 0% financing for up to 72 months on select 2025 Silverado models, or visit your dealer for lease offers.
And Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
How come we never talk about the Canadian dream? It's not like we don't know how to dream. So what is it? Are we too polite to flaunt it? Or do we prefer to just live it? You see, the Canadian dream isn't some faraway ideal we only talk about. It's all around us. It's on the highways, in the hospitals, and the arenas that bring us closer. The Canadian dream lives on every corner of this land. And at Tim's, we're proud to fuel it.
We're all busy, but sometimes we put off the important things, like helping to provide financial protection for your family if the worst happens.
Welcome to Cover Direct. You're speaking to Sally. How can I help you?
Hi, your commercial for family life insurance says I can get coverage over the phone with no complicated forms.
Yes, that's right. You can arrange everything in just one phone call. If you're a Canadian resident aged 18 to 70, you can apply for up to $1.5 million in coverage and help give your family some peace of mind.
Great.
You won't need a medical or a blood test to get approved. You just need to answer a few health and lifestyle questions.
Sounds great.
If you choose $100,000 of coverage, it could be as little as $10.87 a month for the first year. That's just 36 cents a day.
That's less than I thought.
Family life insurance is exclusive to Cover Direct. You can't buy it anywhere else.
Sounds great. I'll go right ahead.
We're Canada's most trusted direct life insurance provider. To get a free, no-obligation quote, call one of our trusted insurance advisors today at 1-844-934-3220 or visit coverdirect.ca.
It's fine. It happens to most guys.
It does. But these days, Canadian guys have Phoenix.ca to connect with a physician about ED treatment plans that may be right for them.
Or hair loss treatment plans. Phoenix makes discussing them convenient as well.
And if this just isn't working for you, you can discuss additional weight loss treatment plans through Phoenix.
And Phoenix delivers discreetly. So maybe it's time. Golf balls.
Oh, this is cute. Yeah, there's no price on this.
Oh, that's because it's not for sale. We're just vehicle specialists.
But the last place I went sold all kinds of things.
At Fountain Tire, we focus on one thing, your vehicle.
Huh. I like that.
Tires are on, belts replaced, sidecar attached. You're all set.
Great.
And now you can put our stuff back.
Stuff back. Yeah, I'm gonna put it back.
Fountain Tire. We're on this road together, Canada.
The Hyundai Kona Electric is the all-electric SUV for you. With stylish design, innovative features, and convenient technology. And with up to 420 kilometers of all-electric range, the Hyundai Kona Electric SUV has the power to take you anywhere and keep you going.
The heroes we need now more than ever. They're super adequate.
Not the best locker room pep talk I've heard, but not the worst.
The rink will be rocking.
As loud as this sport can be.
As a star-studded field of golfers, led by our nation's best.
Oh, Canada.
Contend for the Canadian crown. The RBC Canadian Open on TSN and TSN+.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
So we're talking about the Pacers' comeback last night, and they've been doing that all throughout the playoffs. There was something posted online earlier this morning about how they came back from down 7 against Milwaukee in the first round, 34 seconds left in overtime. Won that game. Down 7 to Cleveland with 46 seconds to go in the fourth quarter. Came back to win that game. And last night, they were down 9 points with 52 seconds to go on the road at the Garden. The place is going nuts. And they thought they won it. What was crazy was Halliburton pulls the Reggie choke thinking it was a 3. And this is like all I could think of afterwards was that could have turned into the biggest meme, like worst look ever. If you start, saying choke, 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 and paying homage to Reggie, who was in the building.
I got to be honest.
If they lost in overtime,
I thought that was a 3.
Well, it looked like it because it was a drop, a step back, and his toe was on the line, and it's kind of cool because the crowd is like pointing 2 at him, like they're like, no, we're going overtime here, and that was a circus shot. It was a great one, but it flies up in the air and finds a way to go in. Still. Goes in, it goes in. But, man, if you go with the Reggie choke and then you don't close in overtime, I don't think you can ever, recover from that, Dave.
No, not in the social media world, man.
No way.
You are never coming back from that if you toss out one of those.
Yeah, it's the worst premature celebration in the history of sports, like for sure. But you know what? There's something about this Pacers team, man. Like they run you so hard. I was talking to an NBA coach on the phone today. And he was saying they're like a racehorse that's a closer, right? Like if the pace is right, like they just wear you out by the end of the game, and that explains they're just such a fast team. Their pace is they are the Pacers. Like they're true to their name. They play at such a high rate that by the end of the games, everybody else is worn out and they're still going. And we've seen it, all those ones you enumerated, Hayes. It's an amazing thing to watch.
Really is, and Kevin Harlan was there calling it with Reggie. He'll join us in about an hour. So 3-1 Oilers going into the third last night, and then they give up 3 straight power play goals to Dallas. I think they're 0 for 14 on the road for their power play, 0 for the last 14 on the road in power plays again on the road for the Oilers. But you give up 3 straight power play goals. When was the last time you saw that? Like in a period, in a big game in a conference final?
Usually the third power play would never happen. It's like, okay, that's enough, guys. No more penalties.
Right. Right.
That is crazy stuff. That's a hell of a shot, but it's like, I don't know, man. It's once again, it looked like Skinner turned the thing around, but did you guys not see some goals there where you're like, what on earth are you doing?
Yes. The Duchesne one where he's looking in the corner and the puck's gone.
This one here, it's like
unbelievable.
Yeah. That in Pickard, though, I don't get the impression that he's close. I don't even think he flew with them to Dallas. So Skinner's playing tomorrow night.
Which goes to a crazy thing, and I know a lot of the nerds think that you just need a guy back there who can, just give us this. Their big philosophy is just give us this kind of goaltending and we can win. Well, like Dallas might pump Edmonton. They could. Edmonton's going to have something to say. This series is far from over. But they got Jake Ottinger, who's got the best numbers in the playoffs. Bobrovsky, he looks like he might be able to get it done. It's like, to have McDavid and have his best years with those 2 guys in net seems awfully crazy to me. It really does. To have it as a question mark. You have the 2 golden nuggets, and you're going to put it on the line. And look, he got him to within Game 7 last year, but it just guess what he did in Game 7? He let in a crappy goal. He let in a crappy goal in Game 7. And
yeah,
I don't know.
But I'm not sure, O-Dog, though. Like when you take penalty after penalty after penalty, and the Oilers talked about they weren't blaming the refs after the game. They were talking about their own immaturity, and immaturity was the word.
That is insane how you could take those stupid penalties in this type of high stakes situation.
Like, what does it do when you take all those penalties? It puts your goaltender under a lot of pressure, and obviously he cracked under it pretty quickly.
And this is what Noodles would say, Dave. He'd be like, "Oh, that's fine. You could blame the goaltending, but why are you taking these stupid penalties and giving the other team an odd man advantage?"
And the other thing it does. Draisaitl and McDavid aren't on the ice. Penalty killing, right? Generally. You got, Connor Brown's taking most of the minutes on the forward side of that. So that's a bad recipe, man. But I think they'll bounce back.
They will. Yeah. They deserve the benefit of the doubt.
In saying that, guys, you talk about a team with some stones. The Dallas Stars to this point, and you can bring it right back to here. It just had a feel where if Florida got up 2-0, good night. And that's fair. Florida's a great team. They lock it down. But that Dallas team, they got some jam. They battle and they fight and they never believe that it's over. Down 2-0 against Colorado in Game 7 of the first-round series. In Game 7. And going into the third, down 2 Cobb, and they pull it out. That's pretty special stuff. Down 3-1 to the Edmonton Oilers. They could have been another Game 1 loss, go get them. They score 5 goals in the third period. That's incredible stuff.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, we just talked about the Pacers and their miracle comebacks or seemingly miracle comebacks.
Yeah.
That's
and they might
Dallas
not get it done, Brian. They might not get it done, but I really, truly believe that there's something to be said about just having a grown-ass man competitive mentality where you can look each other in the eye and say, you know what? When the chips were down, you know how to play and you knew how to respond and you know how to compete. I don't even know if these guys even do that routine where you look the other guy in the eye. I don't it just doesn't seem like a part of the routine, man.
Well, I think you're right. Also, you look at what DeBoer did in the third period to start the third period. They were on the power play and he started his second unit. He had put kind of a makeshift unit together. Because, his response was, this is a team. Basically, it's the Dallas Stars. It's not the Mikko Rantanen show.
No.
It's not, Rope Hintz. You have to be on because you get paid a lot and you're the number 1 center. I don't believe you're rocking. I think this these guys are going to get us out of it. And that's exactly what happened. It was brilliant coaching by DeBoer. And look who got them on the board. It was Harley and Heiskanen, and it was
There's
Granlund.
Just zero entitlement.
Scored.
We don't care what you do or what your salary is or how many goals. You're not starting that power play unit.
Right.
But here, there's not even an option for that.
No.
Not even an option.
It's always been a little bit different. And again, maybe that changes as of
do you know how many times this year it was going to be we were talking about the power play units. And I would say, well, you got to take one of the guys off. And they were like, well, you're not taking Tavares off. I'm like, why not?
Yeah, exactly. Why?
Matthew Nyes is a net front presence now. He's going to be the guy. And people will be like, oh, you're telling me you're going to take the great John Tavares. And I said, I would have his ass off the power play in 4 seconds. If it's for the betterment of the team. He can go out in the second unit. That's what needs to happen. But there's just this entitlement thing where it's like, no. And that's what I'm talking about. If he comes back, he's still John Tavares, the guy that's the power play guy. Would be rolling his eyes if he's not going out there in the first unit. So those are difficult things.
Yep.
I've gone back into a locker room after years away, and it's a different vibe, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that for sure. But yeah, I mean, listen, you look at Dallas, and I think you bring up a really good point about them not just accepting a Game 1 loss last night, because that would have been easy to do. You know, Edmonton was flying. They were playing so well. Draisaitl was great, and McDavid was great. And
yeah, first
Skinner
10 minutes, I'm like, they're going to win 9-0 tonight.
It felt that way.
Yeah.
It really did. It felt that way. It felt like Edmonton was going to come out of the gate flying and make a statement. And through 40 minutes, they did. And then all of a sudden, Dallas, you know, because of the doing of the Oilers in a lot of ways, and a couple of the calls were high sticks, but I think Dallas sold them. But still, they got called. You know, you put yourself in that position, and if
you know what,
that,
if
you're
you want
trouble.
to, but you want to look at the, the positive side for the Oilers. They took a lot of accountability for that in that room.
Yeah,
you heard them. They were blaming themselves, and
right.
I think you could have heard people grousing about the refereeing, and I'm sure there was some of that. But I think look, this team's not dead, man. I'm not counting this team out because to your point, I'm not sure Dallas can handle their speed. Dallas can handle the ferocity of McDavid and Draisaitl in the end here. It's gonna be a difficult slog for Dallas here.
Yep. You can't start any better than that, right? You're up 1-0. You got home ice, and Game 2 tomorrow night. Game 2, Florida, Carolina tonight. We'll get to that in our best bets in about an hour. We'll start the 6 p.m. hour with my highlights of the Shanahan era. Okay, we'll get to those. Then Pierre LeBrun coming up, Kevin Harlan coming up as well. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on YouTube Live.
The Silverado Trail Boss. And a little work. And a little play. And a truck that says no to nothing. And Chevrolet.
Lease a 2025 Silverado Custom for $198 bi-weekly. That's like $99 weekly at 3.5% for up to 24 months with $5,050 down.
And Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
Drinking more of summer with Tim's new Oreo Mocha Ice Caps. With Oreo in every sip. Perfect for that summer romance you longed for. Or that summer fling with the pool you longed for. Either way, drink in summer with Tim's new Oreo Mocha Ice Caps.
Bums. We don't tend to talk about them, but 1 in 2 of them might get hemorrhoids. Itchy, swollen pains in the behind. Sound familiar? Use Anusol Plus to soothe itching, reduce swelling, and relieve pain. And for cleansing, try Anusol Wipes.
Bar none, there's nothing else better than Auto Trader.
Knowing they're Canadian, I think absolutely is a cherry on top.
That definitely changes the game for me.
It's been around for 50 years, and it's still the best place to buy or sell a car. The answer is Auto Trader.
Our new home. Somewhere we can build a life. And I'm gonna do everything I can to look out for you. And that starts with being smart about our family's financial future.
Welcome to Cover Direct, Canada's most trusted direct life insurance provider. How can I help?
Hi, I'd like to get a quote for family life insurance, please.
Okay. If you're aged 18 to 70, you can get coverage for up to $1.5 million and help give your family some peace of mind.
That's great.
You won't need a medical or blood test to be approved. There are just a few health and lifestyle questions.
Sounds good.
If you chose $100,000 of coverage, it could be as little as $9.66 a month for the first year. That's just 32 cents a day.
That's less than I thought. And that money could pay for the mortgage for him one day.
Cover Direct Family Life Insurance is exclusively available from us. You can't buy it anywhere else.
I'll do it.
We're Canada's most trusted direct life insurance provider. Our life insurance specialists have helped thousands of Canadians protect their family's financial future. Plus, our service is rated excellent on Trustpilot. Our prices start from just $966 per month with up to $1.5 million of coverage.
I can't wait for our future together.
To get a free no-obligation quote, call one of our trusted insurance advisors today at 1-844-990-4265 or visit coverdirect.ca.
The Mix and Match event is on now at Sleep Country because one bedroom can still mean two sleep styles. It's time to get mixing and matching with sleep essentials to suit everybody's needs. The Mix and Match event is on now, only at Sleep Country.
I'm just browsing around while I wait for my car. Oh, this is cute. Yeah, there's no price on this.
Oh, that's because it's not for sale. We're just vehicle specialists.
But the last place I went sold all kinds of things.
At Fountain Tire, we focus on one thing, your vehicle.
Huh. I like that.
Tires are on, belts replaced, sidecar attached. You're all set.
Great.
Great.
Fountain Tire. We're on this road together, Canada.
First, we won J.D. Power, ranking Ram the #1 brand in new vehicle quality. Then we won 2025 Motor Trend Truck of the Year. Now, we're throwing our weight around even more with the new Ram Heavy Duty. Well, you know what they say. You win some, you win some. And every win is inspired by the ones who drive us. Ram, built to serve.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, as we know, it happened again. Every year, it's the same old depressing story for Leaf fans, and that's why TSN 1050 wants to give you a leaf of absence. We're sending you and 3 of your equally miserable buddies to Cobble Beach for a rejuvenating 2-night retreat in a private cottage with 3 rounds of award-winning golf. All you have to do is text the word retreat along with your name and city to 105050. Text the word retreat along with your name and city to 105050 and vent about your heartbreaking experiences as a Leafs fan. Next Monday, first up, we'll be calling one defeated fan with some much-needed relief. Take a break from the heartache with TSN 1050's Leaf of Absence. I could use a relief of from this weather the last couple of days.
And just a side note, Hazy, I'll even add to that package. On your way through, you got to cut through Collingwood to get back from Toronto. I'll meet you for lunch on the Sunday.
Look at this guy. Wow. Little meet and greet.
I will take you guys for lunch. Little meet and greet. I got a little restaurant right around the corner from my house. I'll buy you lunch.
I love it. The O-Dog adding to it. Look at us adding as we go here. That's a beautiful thing. I've never been to Cobble Beach. I've heard it's brilliant.
Yeah. Pooley lives up there. Yeah.
Yeah, Pooley. He is up there. That's right. Yeah, Pooley's up there all the time. So there you go. The O-Dog jumping in. I love hearing this.
What a guy.
Positivity.
What a guy.
I always say that about you.
Why not?
Glass
Try to
half
just
full kind of
freshen up the gift a little bit.
That's
I love
right.
it.
That's
but you're
right.
right about this weather. Disgusting. Like it's got a Seattle kind of van vibe where it's like this is not stopping. Like I am trying on that stupid weather app to try to find a sunshine on one of the days.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't any.
No, I know. It's terrible. And furthermore, it's freezing. It's a November vibe, dude. It's November in Seattle.
It's garbage.
November in Toronto. It's like 2 degrees and raining. It's awful.
Did you guys catch that Weather Environment Canada deal? It's the coldest May since 1967.
I did see that.
Isn't that something?
I mean, there were so many different things. This hasn't happened since 67. They haven't done this. And then the Leafs couldn't pull it off. So we could continue with that theme, for the finale, which of course would have been the main thing that hasn't happened since 1967. But the breaking news today is that Brendan Shanahan is out as the president and alternate governor of the Maple Leafs after 11 seasons. MLSE and their board, they had a meeting this morning, and they relayed that news to Shanahan. And they've issued a statement. Shanahan has issued a statement. We'll see what happens with Shanahan moving forward. Pierre LeBrun on that and more in about 10 minutes. And earlier this afternoon, I had my glass half full lenses on, right? The low lights of the Shanahan era. I also have 5 highlights, and you guys can break them down with me. All right, we'll start off the next hour with that 5-pack. So we got Pierre LeBrun coming up, Kevin Harlan, who was at the Garden last night, watching the Pacers do what the Pacers did to the Knicks. We'll get his take on that. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander winning the MVP. And we'll get to our best bets as well as we roll on into the final hour. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Tired of looking tired? Hydra Energetic Face and Eye Care by L'Oreal Men Expert. With vitamin C and protein, reduces the signs of fatigue. Skin is hydrated, looks energized and refreshed. Suitable for sensitive skin. Hydra Energetic Routine by L'Oreal Men Expert.
Drinking more of summer with Tim's new Oreo Mocha Ice Caps. With Oreo in every sip. Perfect for that summer romance you longed for. Or that summer fling with the pool you longed for. Either way, drink in summer with Tim's new Oreo Mocha Ice Caps.
A century. 100 years. It's a story written by Canadians. Every worker, every dealership, every family that chose us. From the highways to the back roads, school drop-offs and Saturday skates. You've put your trust in us. And it's because of you we've put millions of vehicles on Canadian roads. So as we mark 100 years, this is a thank you. Because you didn't just ride along, you drove us.
His framing. Oh boy.
Son, no one likes a half-ass. No one.
You can't half-ass plumbing in Canada. Jeez.
Being a dad and granddad means ensuring I've got all the tools to make the right choice. And now I'm in my 50s. That's more important than ever. That's why I'm choosing to look after my family, just in case.
Welcome to Senior's Choice, the #1 direct choice for Canadians over 50. How can I help?
Hi, I'd like a quick quote for Canadian seniors life insurance, please.
If you're a Canadian resident aged 50 to 80, you can choose the right amount of coverage for you and your family up to $250,000.
That kind of money would help a lot.
You can choose to apply over the phone now in just a few minutes with no medicals or blood tests needed, only a few health and lifestyle questions.
Okay, great.
Depending on the coverage you choose, it could be as little as $17.02 a month. That's just 56 cents a day.
That's less than I thought. And that money could help cover my funeral costs, settle debts, or help my wife with retirement planning. I'll do it. Now that's done, I can get on with something much more interesting.
To get a free, no-obligation quote, call one of our trusted insurance advisors today at 1-844-808-7120 or visit seniorschoice.ca.
Making my way downtown, walking fast, faces pass and I'm homebound. And I need you.
Oh, this is cute. Yeah, there's no price on this.
Oh, that's because it's not for sale. We're just vehicle specialists.
But the last place I went sold all kinds of things.
At Fountain Tire, we focus on one thing, your vehicle.
Huh. I like that.
Tires are on, belts replaced, sidecar attached. You're all set.
Wow, that was fast. I'm not quite done shopping.
You're funny.
Really?
Fountain Tire. We're on this road together, Canada.
Do you need relief for irritated eyes? Try Soothe Preservative-Free Allergy and Dry Eye. With a control grip bottle for accurate dosing, Soothe contains hyaluronic acid for soothing hydration, an ectwane which helps form a protective water barrier. Try Soothe.
You missed surgery.
I moved here to be with you. It's time I start spreading my wings.
An all-new Sullivan's Crossing, Sunday on CTV. Stream next day on Crave.
They're duking it out on the quiz show where knowing it all pays big. Gen Xers will come out swinging.
Let's do it.
But will Gen Z beat them to the punch?
Let's go.
Will the millennials throw in their towels? Or will the boomers have them all on the ropes?
All right. Britney Spears.
Barbenheimer.
Beyonce.
Who's gonna win it all?
Lily Singh hosts the #1 Canadian game show, Battle of the Generations. Wednesday on CTV. Stream next day on Crave.
It's a knockout of a season.
The rink will be rocking.
As loud as this sport can be.
As a star-studded field of golfers, led by our nation's best.
Oh, Canada.
Contend for the Canadian crown. The RBC Canadian Open on TSN and TSN+.
Wear the red dress. Wear the wings. Be a good girl. They should have never given us uniforms if they didn't want us to be an army.
If you want to fight, then let's fight together.
What's happening?
Rebellion.
Welcome to Formula One in 2025.
F1 lives on TSN. With every race, all season long.
That championship challenge is ignited.
And with TSN Plus, go that extra mile with onboard cameras, pit lane channel, and more.
Extraordinary! This is the journey to crown the greatest driver on Earth.
Formula One lives on TSN and TSN Plus. Subscribe now.
It's a new era of golf with more options to choose from than ever before.
That is Tiger and Rory at its best.
Every week is another life-changing opportunity. And Golf Talk Canada's Mark Zecchino.
It's about legacy.
Bob Weeks.
Not her best stuff, but she got it done.
And Adam Scully.
Nick Taylor has done it again.
Take you around the globe, covering the game's top stories and biggest stars. Golf Talk Canada on TSN. Presented by TaylorMade.
This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Final hour OverDrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Brian Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star. We're up on YouTube Live. We've been doing that all this week. We're going to do it every day moving forward. So you can watch us live on the TSN YouTube channel, and you can find the show afterwards in completion. You can find every hour a bunch of great clips up there on the TSN YouTube channel. See us on TSN2. We're obviously on TSN Radio, streaming online. We're everywhere. Everywhere. We got a big hour coming up here. Pierre LeBrun will join us in a few moments. Kevin Harlan later in the hour, our best bets. I've got the 5 highlights of the Shanahan era. Get to that momentarily. Just got outed because I've got a new phone recently. My wife's got a new phone recently, and we've got the health app, right? The iPhone health app, tracking steps. I don't know if you guys do that.
I know what you're going to say.
Okay.
It alerted you saying you haven't moved in 8 hours.
That has happened a few times in the last couple of weeks. But what really stood out was, when I play golf, I try to walk as much as I can.
Dude, no, you don't. No, you don't.
I try.
Dude, I've seen you and your buddies. You guys take your own carts so you don't have to. Yes. Like, that's even more gross. Like
that is really gross.
That's so you just zoom to your own ball, hit, and you're not walking anywhere. It's not like your buddy says, your buddy doesn't say, you go walk over there and hit yours, and I'm going to. No.
Right.
You guys aren't moving.
Literally in our own carts.
Oh, man.
That's disgusting.
It's gross behavior. I'll admit it. But I tried to move, and we just looked at the app. My wife's like, well, where are we at? And on Monday, because it was the holiday, I was mowing the lawn. I was doing all this stuff. I walked the kids up to the park. We walked to go get ice cream. I was like 16,000 steps.
Wow.
Unreal. Tuesday, golf, 4,500 steps. And it's just like, well, what about, why are you on the golf cart? It's, it's killing you, man. So
what do you do in a day not doing, like just a regular day where you don't even go to the gym? What would a normal step be?
I think you got to reach 7,000, don't you? I mean,
no way. Not if you're not doing anything.
Oh, listen, don't get me wrong. If I'm not doing it, you give me a football, like an NFL Sunday where I'm a little bit hungover, I will not hit
185.
Yes, I won't hit 500 steps. Now, it's different now with kids, but 10 years ago, I had a day, I remember, I looked at my phone, it was like single digits, dude. It was almost impossible.
You only got up to piss, and that's
basically, that's what happened. Probably ordered food multiple times and walked to the door. That's probably what happened. That clearly doesn't exist anymore. But I think just a normal day, work, bringing kids to school and stuff, I'm hitting 4,000 or 5,000 steps. But this app, man, I gotta track it. I gotta be on top of things.
I've got buddies who claim
steps.
if they have a massive night and a feed late, they can sleep in and all the way through the next day and night and be ready for work on
That's
a Sunday.
Insanity, man. That's scary stuff.
It's
dude.
possible.
I guess it is, and maybe I've done it at some point in my life, but that's tough to believe. All right, you want the highlights here?
Yes,
Because the
bring
news
it
today,
to
Brendan
us.
Shanahan out as the president of the Maple Leafs after 11 years. I went through the 5 lowlights. Find that online. You can find it on YouTube. I'm sure we'll post it on Instagram and Twitter and everything. Here are the 5 highlights. All right, number 5, Legends Row / jersey retirements. And what I mean by that is like the revitalizing of the history. I thought he did a remarkable job at that when he got here. You can throw in the alumni box, which I'll admit I've selfishly popped in a few times. I get some steps walking into the alumni box. I've gotten that when I go down. But I thought Legends Row was brilliant. And I think because they honored the jersey numbers forever, right? They always honored them. And then the beginning of, I want to say the 17th season, he told everyone to be in their seats early, and they retired the numbers. And that's when JVR was here, and he had to move off 21 because Solming, obviously. And anyway, I thought that was really, really well done. Really, really well done. So Legends Row jersey retirements at 5. Number 4, this one's going to surprise you guys because of where we stand now and what we know now. But at the time, number 4, the hiring of Mike Babcock. The hiring of Mike Babcock. I don't know if you would argue with me on that. Again, I guess now it's a different world because of who he is and what he represents. Dave, you remember it. Oh, you remember it. At the time, it was a grand slam. I couldn't believe they got him.
Dude,
that was 10 years ago.
I remember the introductory speech. We were down there. We set up shop.
Yep.
And all of the MLSE employees came down to watch his introduction. It was like Lou Holtz was being introduced to everyone. It was
the hero
crazy.
had arrived. That was the guy. Mike Babcock was going to drag this franchise to a championship.
Well, there was this sense of optimism where it was like, these guys are going to be good enough, and now the coach is going to come in to seal the deal, and here we go. That was the feeling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And he was a super coach back then, right? There was no tarnish on the 2 gold medals with the Canadian Olympic team, and there was no tarnish on the Stanley Cup ring.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know what we know about Mike Babcock then. And you're right. It was an absolute home run, grand slam. Wooed him away from Buffalo, man.
That's right.
How about that?
Who would have thought 10 years later Buffalo's still trying to make the playoffs and still looking for their Mike Babcock? But that was 10 years ago. So hiring Babcock was at 4. Number 3, beating Tampa in 2023. I know now you have a jaded view of this, clearly. But at the time, that was such a relief for everyone, the fan base included, who had been goofed on by every other fan base in the league, including people in Buffalo, saying, you haven't won a playoff series in 20 years. You guys are losers. The team can't win anything. And for them to beat Tampa, who had been to 3 straight Cup finals, all those overtime defeats, 3-0 in Tampa in that series, including Game 6. Tavares gets the winner. Again, it looks and feels different now because of what happened last year and what happened this year. But beating Tampa in 2023, I got that at number 3. Any arguments there? That makes sense?
None. That makes sense.
That was a huge moment.
Huge moment. Number 2, making the playoffs in the Matthews-Marner rookie season, that first year.
Yeah.
That was as fun and entertaining of a season as I can remember following this team. Like, you knew Matthews was going to win the Rookie of the Year at that point. Marner was a wizard. Willie was coming alive. Babcock was here. They made the playoffs. Oh, remember, you and I were in the alumni box on the Sunday night playing Columbus, the 82nd game of the year. I think we might have been in the building on the Saturday night because they had 2 home games that weekend. It was against Pittsburgh on the Saturday night, Columbus on the Sunday.
I think it was flipped around. It might have been Pittsburgh on the Sunday, and I remember Curtis McElhaney kicking out his leg and making a save on Sid that sealed the deal.
That's when they punched their ticket. That was the Saturday, Game 81. Game 82 was against Columbus to see if they'd play Ottawa or if they'd play Washington, remember?
Oh.
That was the game. And Torts was in Columbus, and if they beat
they
Columbus,
could have won the game and played Ottawa.
And instead they lost and moved into as a wild card into the other division to play Washington. But that was just everything was so fresh. That was the outdoor game, I believe, that year. Pretty sure it was.
Mm-hmm.
Down at BMO, I was I was there for that. That's when a lot of this stuff happened. Legends, all that kind of stuff. That whole season was magical.
Maybe that was a precursor. Like maybe that was the first little sign of come on, you can't win that game.
Yeah, speeding.
You know
Columbus.
what I mean? Like where you could have had Ottawa and not Washington.
You're right.
That might have been like a little kind of look into the future where it was like, come on, you lose that game to Columbus?
We didn't know it.
Serious?
Yeah.
We didn't know it then, but you're right. Because Columbus wasn't much of a team either.
No,
it was like,
they
you
were
got to beat
terrible.
Columbus. Got to beat them. Now you're running on a high. Beat this. You play Ottawa.
But remember, hey, they got up 2-1 on the Capitals in that series, right? And it was like, and at that time it was like, wow, the Capitals are staring down the skeletons in their closet because they at that point they were the Leafs, right?
That's
like they were the team that couldn't get over the hump. They were the team that was not performing in the playoffs in the way they were in the regular seasons. And
you're right.
And up 2-1, and then they lose 3 one-goal games in a row.
Yep. Bozak in overtime, game 3. That was a great night, great game. I remember that walking out of that building, thinking, wow, they might actually win this series. And then at number 1, the highlights of the Shanahan era, I have them winning the lottery, which, again, probably speaks to why we're in the situation we are today. That, for me, the number 1 highlight happened off the ice in suits. But when they won the lottery, as big as the Babcock thing was, as big as, these other things that have happened, that was just such a monumental moment. It was first overall pick, something they hadn't had since '85 when they drafted Wendell Clark. It was Austin Matthews. Everyone knew it was coming. Everyone knew who he was, what he was going to become. Babcock was here already. Marner was coming. Nylander was coming. That's number 1 for me, them winning the lottery.
They almost had the big kahuna, too. Not that Matthews isn't big, but I think they had the best odds going in. Like when the balls were dropping for McDavid, I think they had the best odds when it came right down to it.
They did. Yeah, for the 4th lottery ball. They had the first
ball.
3,
yeah.
And then it was they had like 3 different options of the 9 or 10 that were available to win it. And Edmonton had 1, and their number came up. Here's Pierre LeBrun, our TSN hockey insider. Pierre, at what point, in the last few days did you think and maybe believe this was coming, that Shanahan was going to be out in Toronto?
I mean, I kind of felt all year it was the more probable scenario unless the Leafs went deep in the playoffs and deep being past the second round. But then when the Islanders were granted permission yesterday to speak with Shanahan, I mean, I guess you had to read into that, right? I mean, why would MLSE let the Islanders give them the green light if they thought they were going to re-sign Brendan Shanahan to an extension? So that was kind of the slam dunk there. And, listen, you guys have done a great job your last couple of hours going over all this stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, I start with, it's been 11 years. So regardless of whether you're glass half full or glass half empty with Shanahan, at the end of the day, if he was on with us, he would say not getting this team deep in the playoffs, you can't argue that. I mean, that's a big disappointment. But regardless of how you feel about all the other things he did, and he certainly leads a team that's better run than it was when he got here. 11 years is a long time. I mean, a lot of people don't get 11 years to be a president of a sports team. So, it's not very sexy, but honestly, I just feel like the contract expiring and being here 11 years was probably the biggest reason.
Yeah, and, you look at what this could mean for the Maple Leafs moving forward. What do you make of the announcement that, Brad Treliving will stay in as GM, and as of now, they're not going to immediately replace Shanahan? And do you think this is the end of the president's role with this team? What do you think MLSE is going to do here? Well, that's what's interesting is that, there's a quote in the statement from Keith Pelley, and we'll hear more from him tomorrow. And that's the key, is to understand how Keith Pelley puts it tomorrow at his own news conference. But does he really have to hire a replacement for Brendan Shanahan? I mean, Keith Pelley wasn't here when Brendan Shanahan was hired. So does Keith Pelley feel that there needs to be an in-between him and the GM? And maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, but I don't think that's clear right now. And so that's why what he has to say tomorrow will be important. But it may very well be that, at least for a while anyway, that unless there's an obvious candidate that jumps out at him, maybe he's comfortable not having Brendan Shanahan replaced. Number 2, I mean, you mentioned Brad Treliving, obviously he hasn't spoken since the season ended. But I would imagine today's a tough day for him in the sense that Brendan Shanahan hired him.
And, hockey guys, they go into a foxhole together. And so just because Tree Living wasn't let go today, I can't imagine it's a great day for him anyway, because he's probably, and this is just me, relaying what I've seen with other GMs over the years who lost the guy who hired them. You probably feel a little less secure moving forward about what it all means. So, that's the other thing to keep in mind here.
Pierre, what if any impact could Shanahan leaving have on the two key UFAs? Could it kind of change someone else's perspective? Could it affect that at all?
I don't think so. I think Tree Living is really the key figure in those conversations anyway. And John Tavares made a point the other day. I was at the clean-out locker day, and he made a point of saying that he had just had a meeting with Tree Living, as all the players did, but for his exit meeting, and that he came out of it feeling pretty positive about his chances of staying a Leaf. So he made a point of mentioning Tree Living, even though, we hadn't asked Tavares about that. So I think that's still the GM's job. I don't even think we need to have a conversation any further about whether or not there's a chance Mitch Marner stays. I think it's pretty much a done deal that he's going to market.
But, okay, going to market means he's leaving for sure? Like, that's your opinion, that Marner's done?
Nothing's for sure in life. Right. I think I definitely, if you were putting a gun to my head, I would say that it's very, very likely that Marner leaves in my mind. Now, you never know. Again, it could be after Marner said he wanted to decompress over the next few weeks and go over everything. Maybe he comes out of it on the other side feeling differently after the emotion is out of it. But my sense is he's going to market.
For Shanahan, Pierre, obviously the Islanders have reached out. He's got the built-in relationship with Lou Lamoriello, who's still hanging around as a advisor to the Islanders president. Do you see a fit there in that management team for Brendan Shanahan?
For sure. And I think really the person to key on is actually John Collins, Dave, because John Collins, when he was at the league, worked with Brendan Shanahan, right? They were both at the league office at the same time. And John Collins is along with ownership, spearheading the search here for the new hockey administration. So I think that's probably more the key relationship to focus on. There's no question in my mind that Shanahan, when he feels the time is right here over the next number of days, will meet with the Islanders. Whether or not he feels that job is for him, we'll see. I can't answer that. But I will say that, my sense is, some people have wondered, will Shanahan maybe take a year off and reset? I don't think so. I think he wants to get right back into it with the team if he can. So if the Islander job sounds good to him and everything around it sounds good to him, it may very well be that he feels that's for him. We'll see.
Well, they've got the first overall pick, and they've got some cap space, and we were trying to connect, Mitch Marner to Brendan Shanahan and the Islanders. Could you see a connection there? Like, if you think Marner's going to hit the market, do you have two or three teams in mind that you think would show interest in him, but also he would show interest in them?
Yeah, hard to tell. I don't know that I would put the Islanders in there, only because I think that whoever ends up there, whether it's Mark Bergevin or Matthew Darce as GM, and then whether or not Shanahan's in there as president, I think they need some form of retool, not necessarily a rebuild. I don't think ownership there wants a rebuild, but I think a retool. So I don't know about splurging on July 1st as your first act in a retool. But, again, let's see who they end up hiring. It's hard to answer in the vacuum without knowing who the Islanders end up hiring to run their team. But, I think a lot of the usual suspects, if I had to guess, for Marner, I think I mentioned some of these teams last week. There's no doubt in my mind that, teams like Anaheim and Detroit and Chicago will want to get in on it. I had a piece today come out with Ken Holland, interviewed Ken Holland today, and he obviously wouldn't get into names, but we ended our interview by him saying the Kings are absolutely intent on being aggressive here. We know Ken Holland likes to swing for the fences, so I would surmise that the Kings would be one of the teams too, and they got cap room that would be in on Marner. But aside from that, I think Marner himself, if he goes to market, which I think is likely, will probably look at the usual suspects. Florida, Vegas, all the teams that we always end up keying on, where players seem to love to go. I mean, I think those teams would probably be on his list as well.
Yeah, and yet those teams aren't going to give him $14 million a year. So how does that jive?
Right. Let's see what he wants.
What's that?
Let's see what he wants, and let's see what he prioritizes.
Oh, that would be sickening if he signs in Florida for $9.5 million. He will just never be able to come back here, ever
I'm
again.
not saying that's going to happen.
No, I understand. I'm just saying if that happens, there will be no alumni. Hey, coming back, good to see it like that. It'll just be the end. It'll be over and finished, because the thought is, well, he's going to want all the money, and Austin got this and Willie got that, and that's what that's what I'm having a tough time figuring out. Like if Mitch is if he wants to win, those teams make a lot of sense, and I could understand that. Like if he's like, hey, listen, I just decided I want to win. Okay, he never said he wants to redeem himself in Toronto, and I want to prove I can win here, but maybe you want to win somewhere else. Yet if you're going to do that with those teams, like they don't run their cap that way, and they're not going to give you more money than their top dogs, but it may actually be a perfect spot because he'd go in there and he wouldn't be the man. Like if he went to Florida, he'd be fourth or fifth in line in terms of importance on that team.
Yeah. I mean, again, regardless of how this ends up playing out, I do feel like he sounds like a guy that needs to change the scenery.
Yes,
honestly.
so I'm not disputing that.
So, I mean, if you had the power in you, Brian, to hypnotize him and convince him to re-sign with the Leafs, would you really want to? Knowing that when he wakes up from that trance, that he's realizing that's not where his heart is anymore. I mean, again, I don't want to speak for him, but that would be where I read on the situation right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'm ready to move on. I think most people are. I think it's in the best interest of him, the team. I'm curious about what the negotiation looks like. Like that's I guess what I'm saying. Like because I've always looked at Mitch and all of them, not him alone, as he better pay me. I better get my money. I better get my contract. Like how does that possibly stop on July 1st when he's a UFA? Like everyone saying he's going to make all this money. Well, he's not. If he goes to Vegas, I don't think he will. If he goes to Vegas or Florida or Tampa, I don't see how he could.
Yeah, it depends where he ends up. No question. And I could just say this, that regardless of how you rate his playoff performance, I can absolutely assure you he's not affected his free agent stock because of.
How's that possible, Pierre? How's that possible?
Because of the market. Because of the market forces.
What?
Players. Look at the list of players available July 1st.
Yeah, but that's where.
If only one apple was available at the market, really was you were craving an apple, but so were 10 other people. Would you not be willing to overpay for it?
I know, sure. But I just don't know what it says to your fan base. Well, this is the only guy available, so we just gave him a boatload. And once we're going to get good in the playoffs come around, he might not play that good, but we did it anyway. So
yeah, but some teams are just trying to get into the playoffs. Not everyone just gets to start the season in October and say, boy, I can't wait to see what happens this year in the playoffs. Some teams are like, we haven't been in forever. Mitch-Marner's going to help us get in.
And that's what I'm saying. I guess that's where I'm driving at is if you're Florida and you look at him, you don't need Marner.
No.
Okay, sure, you'll take him, but why would you pay him more than you pay Sam Reinhart?
Dude, knowing
Florida, why would you ever pay him more than that?
They have a kid coming up in the minors that might fill a void.
They probably do.
Yeah,
they probably
they have something in the system that's just like, we have that guy.
Or you look at it and say, why wouldn't we just keep Brad Marchand? Like, look what he's doing for us right now.
Absolutely possible.
In the playoffs.
The one thing I would say about Florida, and it's not necessarily tied to anyone in particular, but they will be interesting to watch yet again. And Bill Zito, who I would assume will be nominated for GM of the Year here in the coming days, along with Jim Nill and a few others. But, they've not been able to extend Sam Bennett for whatever reason, right? And again, that's not the end of the world that it hasn't happened yet. As you remember, Sam Reinhart went right to June 30th at midnight last year, right after they won the Cup. So that one, they have to sweat that one out before they finally re-sign Reinhart. But they've not been able to extend Bennett yet. And I get it. Bennett's a totally different player than Marner, different position, different attributes, and obviously not quite the same offensive impact, of course, as Marner. But if they can't re-sign Bennett, which is absolutely possible, just based on the fact they haven't been able to extend him during the year, it does open up some cap space. Not huge cap space, but certainly more cap space than they had, a year ago when they kept the guys they did. So just keep that in mind with Florida, is that they actually, and the cap's going up, right? The cap is not staying still like it did the last 4 years. So Florida, between the possibility of losing either Bennett or Ekblad or both, and again, they may sign those guys, but if they lose them and the cap is going up, they suddenly have more cap room than they've had for several years. And who knows, they might be coming off another cup. So keep that in mind too.
Crazy the statement you just made, Pierre. Like you said, Marner is in a different stratosphere other than Sam.
Offensively.
No, let me just finish. Let me finish. If you had to pick one guy to get you through a playoff series and you're GM Pierre LeBrun, who would you want to sign?
It would depend on what I feel my greatest. But I mean, it's important. So the Leafs, on how they've played in the playoffs at crunch time, they need that kind of guy. But there are other teams who would actually need Marner more if they can't score. Like, it depends on what kind of player you need. It's hard to answer those things in a vacuum. There's no question the Leafs need a Sam Bennett-type player, whatever that looks like.
Okay, so if playoff stats don't matter, Pierre, what is the market for John Tavares, who showed up on the score sheet in only one of the 7 games against the Panthers and is turning 35 in September?
Yeah. Well, his contract looks different staying in Toronto than it would on July 1st. There's no question about that. Teams love this guy, but it's not with him. It doesn't even sound like he wants to talk to anyone. He just really wants to stay elite. And you have to acknowledge that with John Tavares. He's been really consistent in his desire to remain here at home. But, that means that there has to be a number that works. And, I believe that at the start of the year, I think I reported this if I haven't, but the hell, I'll just blurt it out. But last September at camp, I think Tavares and his camp told the Leafs they'd be ready to extend right then and there. And I think they probably would have signed for around $5 million a year. But then he went out and had a huge season. So, I don't know that the number can stay there from where it was in September because of the points he put up this year. But on the other hand, he's kind of hurting his own leverage by saying, I don't want to go anywhere. And this is where the Leafs they've not done this a lot with their guys, but I think they got to be a bit Mr. Meaty here and say, well, if you really want to stay, this is the number. I really do think that's what the Leafs have to do here.
Yep. I agree with that. All right, Pierre. Well, we'll see. It's been a crazy week, and we're still in the third round. We got more games tonight, and we're still weeks away from the draft.
I'm off to Edmonton on Saturday. Going to catch a couple games of the Western Conference Final. Looking forward to that.
All right, buddy. Enjoy it. We'll do it soon.
All right, guys.
Pierre LeBrun, our TSN Hockey Insider. Kevin Harlan of the NBA on TNT. He will join us next.
A century. 100 years. It's a story written by Canadians. Every worker, every dealership, every family that chose us. From the highways to the back roads, school drop-offs, and Saturday skates. You've put your trust in us, and it's because of you we've put millions of vehicles on Canadian roads. So as we mark 100 years, this is a thank you, because you didn't just ride along, you drove us.
It's a big match for the National Women's Soccer League, and only the best will win.
Just blaze Godzilla bankroll, stones from Chile on. Yo, I ain't got it all. That means I'm barely home. Trailblazers, stay rolling with vengeance. My arts is crafty dogs. Why I stuck on Laffy Taffy, wondering how did get past me? I've been doing this before. Now it's dropping nasty.
Whoa! Who half-assed his framing? Oh boy.
Son, no one likes a half-ass. No one.
You can't half-ass Florida in Canada. Jeez.
That's later in the hour. It's a crazy night in sports because simultaneously, while the Oilers were throwing a win away down in Dallas, the Knicks were throwing a win away down in New York. And the Pacers, like, breaking records in terms of comebacks and in terms of the score and in terms of how well they had to play in particular offensively. They were putting up every single shot was going in. I mean, needless to say. And Halliburton thought he had turned the lights out, and he went to Reggie and he pulled the choke job, and then it turns out it was a 2 and not a 3.
Don't even tell me either of you two had you saw this coming, like you were on the Pacers this year.
No.
Dude, I thought the Cavs were going to kill them.
Yes.
I thought the Cavs were, I'm sorry, this might sound crazy, I thought they were going to kill everybody. They were unreal this season.
They were. They ran into injuries, and then the Pacers, to their credit, they just never stopped. They never stopped, and it continued last night. And a man that saw it up close and personal from the NBA on TNT joins us now. Here's Kevin Harlan. What was that like last night, Kevin?
Well, good to be on with you, and pretty stunning. About as stunning as the Kawhi shot back in 2019 when the Raptors beat Philly in Game 7. Pretty dramatic, for that shot, for all the comeback ability that both of these teams have shown in the playoffs. By the way, New York has got a nice resume in these playoffs and what they've done coming back and winning against Detroit. They did it in round 1 in a game or two. They did it a couple times against Boston, the reigning champion, in the second round in the East semifinals. And so New York has that same ability, but Indiana has kind of been the story in that regard. Halliburton has been the guy pulling the trigger. And this team, the one thing that you noticed up close, even when they were down by 17, the Pacers stayed and played the same way. They jiggled their lineup a little bit, and they took out their big man Turner. They got faster. They moved the pace up a little bit more. They had to play with more urgency. All of that played into their hand. And their style, their look, body language, whatever you want to call it, it did not change from the way they started the game, where they hit like the first 5, 6, 7, 8 shots till the very end. New York, I thought, once the comeback was being put together, you could see body language, lack of crispness in rotations, and making the right switch and the right read, and maybe even communication, which you never know until you find out after the game and talk to them. But those things seem to get sluggish. They got a little wonky in there, and Indy just began to play the way they played. They're the best shooting team, the Pacers are, in the postseason. They're the second highest scoring team in these playoffs. So you can't exhale. The 3-ball will make it that way, and their style certainly lends even more to that, because they'll race up and down and then press you after they make a basket and force you to, get out of your rhythm. And the Knicks did. Everything worked well for the Pacers. They had a timeout and a challenge late in the game, which they used, and it worked. And they earned that win. There was nothing given to them. People say it was a lucky bounce and straight through on the Halliburton shot, and there's always a sense of that. But he's made so many and been so clutch that I think luck is out of it. Same with Brunson. They make big shots. They just do. And we saw that last night, and that building was stunned. It was as quiet and as shocking as it was for that Kawhi shot in 2019, but on the other side with exuberance and just like amazement at what people had just seen.
Kevin, did you find yourself having to get some urgency into your call? Because sometimes, and you're one of the greats, even the greats at the score like that, you're like, maybe it's story time, maybe we'll look around, and then all of a sudden the comeback is on. How did you kind of get the feel for it, of what was happening out there as the play-by-play man?
Well, my guys start kind of getting ready for Game 2. My guys I was working with, they start. Well, in Game 2, and I think Stan even said on the air, he goes, boy, I don't know how they're going to come back. Even like less than 2 minutes to go, and the Neesmith kid was hitting all these shots, and it crept up on you. And that's the problem when you're broadcasting a game with such a quick twitch to it. Mm-hmm. When there's such a turnaround in a small window, you can manage a quarter, you can manage a half, but to manage, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, and have it happen so fast and such a collapse appear before you, you're staying in the moment with trying to use the building blocks of what just happened to lead you to make some sense as to what you're watching now. So we saw the kid hitting the shots, but then you got to start putting things together. A missed free throw here and there by the Knicks down the stretch. Missing shots they were normally hitting early on. They were going at Brunson because he had 5 fouls. And so his defense was a little shaky and a little loose because he didn't want to foul out and get that 6th. So, there's a lot going on as you compress it. It's not unlike a football team where their selection of plays and the variety and breadth which what they can think of when they get in that red zone, when they get inside the 10-yard line, inside the 7-yard line, and now that their catalog of plays will shrink so much. That's kind of the way it is in a game like that from broadcasting, because you don't have time to develop with conversation and replays and graphics, as smoothly and as maybe easily digestible as you would if it occurred over a quarter or over a half. This happened in the final couple minutes of a game in a conference finals. And it's a rat race to see, where your eyes should go on the floor, who could be that next guy to pull it off, with keeping in mind how you got there and staying present in the moment. So there's a lot going on, and sometimes in a game like that, you take off your headset and say, "Man, I sure hope we conveyed it, and at least explained why this was going on." Because there was a mindset with about 4 minutes left, like this baby's all she wrote. How are the Knicks going to come back, or how is Indiana going to come back with this loss for Game 2 tomorrow night? And sure enough, it switched like that in the blink of an eye, and we were left with one of the most thrilling finishes of these playoffs, and I dare say in recent memory, and especially with the stakes so high, because the winner here, of course, goes to the NBA Finals.
Well, Kevin, you definitely conveyed it. You do a great job. But I wanted to get your sense of where the league is at right now, because you're courtside every night, and it feels like, 6 years removed from the Raptors winning the title and on that Kawhi shot as a big part of it en route. It feels like the league is really changing before our eyes. We kind of have been accustomed to a league where, there was no getting past LeBron, or there was no getting past the Warriors with Durant, or there was no getting past these dynastic teams that were seemingly unbeatable. And now we thought maybe we had a team like that in the Celtics. Suddenly, they're not that team. Jason Tatum's going to be out a year. What do you make of the wide openness of this league as we sit here watching it?
Well, you bring up an interesting point, because I think the league, with load management, with retiring giants like LeBron soon, Curry soon, Kevin Durant very soon. These guys are in the last literal years of their career. And there doesn't seem to be like that guy to get the baton. We saw it when Magic and Bird gave it to Jordan. And then Jordan passed it on, and they got it from Dr. J. And then Jordan passed it on to Kobe, who passed it on to LeBron. And in between, we had the Allen Iversons and the Charles Barkleys, and we had these other bit players, but there was always like a flagship guy. There doesn't seem to be a flagship guy right now. The league, back in the days of David Stern, the late great commissioner of the league, he thought we have got to build the stars. But I would contend that we've got a time now where maybe that can be adjusted. Sure, the NFL has Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, and it's got Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, and we've got greats in all sports with an individual significant player. But at the end of the day, it's the team. And I'm wondering if this is that opportunity with no great player on the horizon to maybe emphasize team like we see we've got Brunson, but the Knicks are a good team. We got the Pacers and Halliburton, but they are a team. And the star last night was this kid that no one really knows about, this Neesmith kid. So maybe it's time to kind of shift that a little bit and push the team element so that when a star is gone, you still have the team. And when there's load management and a great player is going to be out for 10 to 15 games, doesn't matter. You've still got the team. And the NFL has prospered that way. They've built matchups and rivalries with teams. And I know there are fewer players on the floor than an 11-man on each side NFL game, and I understand that. But with nobody dominant, like ready to just jump out and grab this sport, and they keep pushing people, but that's the media. I don't know if that's the reality. And the media would so desperately love there to be another Jordan, Kobe, LeBron, Kevin Durant. I don't know that there's one right now, but there are a lot of great players. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of players that the Gilgeous-Alexanders and Brunson and Halliburton. But I don't know if you have a transcendent player right now. So it might be a time for the NBA to push the team thing and the rivalry and build the strength of the league in that regard, and we'll see where it goes. But by the way, Toronto is represented very well in this series.
Yep.
As you know, Pascal Siakam on one team and Anunoby on the other. And I know it must hurt Raptor fans and NBA fans in Canada to see two important players from their championship run a couple years ago, not even on the team anymore, but still very much involved and playing well with other teams in the NBA.
Absolutely, with Kevin Harlan. And, on top of that, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is from here.
Oh, my gosh, yes, of course.
So we're all tracking Shai. So we're I guess we're rooting against Minnesota, yet they're a border state,
yeah.
So maybe we should consider that. But Shai wins the MVP last night. We saw it 2 nights ago. He set the tone. They beat up on Minnesota in Game 1. We'll see if the Timberwolves respond. I think they likely will. But where do you stand on Shai and his ability to run off maybe multiple MVPs, but what this might look and feel like if Oklahoma City, who's been the best team in the league all year, actually gets through this, gets to the NBA final, and wins it? Like, isn't that exactly what we're talking about here? Like Oklahoma City, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a Canadian kid, they could be winning everything, MVP and championship, a month from now.
And remember, they had Westbrook and they had Durant
yep.
and they had Harden when they made the finals, many years ago. But Durant emerged out of that trifecta, although Harden was an MVP at one time with another team, Houston, and Westbrook, was an MVP.
Too. Yep.
Amazing, right? I mean, so you're talking about there were 3 MVPs to come on that team, but Durant probably emerged as that transcendent player, the guy that he's not in the Jordan class clearly, but going to Golden State put him with the championships in a different feel and a final appearance with Oklahoma City. I would say that, yeah, Shai, there is an opportunity there for sure, and probably for Halliburton. The league is dying to find that next guy or the next couple guys, and maybe this is how it begins. When Gilgeous-Alexander was traded to Oklahoma City, he wasn't even a starter, and he has grown with the team. And the thing that's great about Oklahoma City is not Gilgeous-Alexander, which stands alone, but they're such a great team, and that's how Indiana is. And I dare say that's how the Celtics were. And going back to the Raptors, they may have had Kawhi, but they also had others, Siakam and Van Vliet, and so you need a team to win. And I like when we follow colleges here in the States, we it's the brand, it's the logo, it's the university. Not a lot. Duke Flag was the outlier this year at Duke, but Duke stands out because they're Duke. And Carolina and Kentucky and Indiana and Kansas, they all stand out because the team, the school, the logo, And the NFL, a lot of times it is just the arrowhead for the Chiefs and the Raven for the Baltimore Ravens and the Patriots for, Brady in New England. But Brady's the first to admit, clearly I was the quarterback, the most important position in all of sports. But we had a great team. And that's the thing that I think that's exactly what Oklahoma City has done. They took any name they had, completely rebuilt through the draft and some very clever acquisitions in free agency, and they built a team. And because of that, they are where they are with a 68-win season, historical high net rating. They did all these things, and that's where they stand. And actually, the Pacers are the same way. They built like that. The payroll of the Knicks is huge, one of the highest in the NBA. But the Pacers have a lower payroll, and aside from Halliburton, and I don't even know that he's a household name. He's a little bit more today because of what happened last night. But he didn't even play on the Olympic team. He was on it, but he didn't play. And so that just goes to show you, kind of where he is in the hierarchy. He was just named the most overrated player in a poll of NBA players in the league. They said he was the most overrated. And yet here he is with 3 big-time shots in these playoffs. The team is 3 wins away from the finals for the first time in a quarter century. Yet I don't know if there are a lot of people, even before last night, that could have said, who is he? Where do you play college? Where is he from? Well, he played at Iowa State. And he was on the Olympic team, by the way, even though he didn't there's a lot going on with this team, and the more they win, the more recognition they're going to get. But make no mistake, it's not just one guy. That is a team, and we saw it with the shooting of Neesmith last night as an example.
Absolutely, it was one hell of a game, one hell of a finish. That is for sure. And it's only game 1. We're just getting started in the conference final. Enjoy the rest of it, Kevin. Really appreciate you doing this.
Nice to be on with you guys. Thank you for calling again. We'll talk again soon, I hope.
You got it. Kevin Harlan of the NBA on TNT.
Why isn't Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Ant-Man, how come they're not the next guys? Did they just not have the sex appeal of a LeBron? Or, is it because of where they play?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a couple of things. I mean, LeBron was a phenom when he was 13, 14.
No, I get it. He's a different beast.
LeBron's a different beast. I do think Oklahoma City and Minnesota, this is the challenge the NBA has. They want to be the NFL. You can't snap your fingers and be the NFL. No. It doesn't work that way. Oklahoma City can't draw like L.A. Minnesota can't draw like Golden State. That's San Francisco, L.A., Oklahoma City, Minnesota. It's simple. It's still a regional sport in many ways. Yes, it's gone global in terms of stars and in terms of popularity, but it's still closer to the NHL than it is the NFL. The NFL is a different beast, man.
It is. Speaking of L.A., Hayes, do you think the clip show would maybe Shea?
Yes. Instead of
that Paul George trade, dude.
Oh, one of the worst deals in sports history when you look back on it.
Yeah.
All right, best bets coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, best bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Panthers puck line tonight, plus 1.5. I think Carolina possibly wins. If they do, they're going to have to earn it. I think it's a close game, maybe goes to overtime. Brad Marchand, 1 point. Carter Verhaeghe, 3+ shots on goal in 60 minutes. That parlay paying plus 384. Best bets powered by FanDuel. And as we know, live same-game parlays now available for every Stanley Cup playoff game on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly. 18+, physically located in Ontario. All right, big news today. Brendan Shanahan no longer running the show here in Toronto. And we'll see what comes of it. As of tomorrow afternoon, Keith Pelley going to speak with the media. I'm guessing Brad Treliving will speak as well at some point about what the plan is moving forward. What does this mean for the Raptors, Toronto FC, the Argos, the whole empire down there? We'll see. But it's been 11 years, and it was a good run, but ultimately, didn't get to the promised land, and the Leafs have moved on. We'll see what Shanahan does from here. All right, boys. Good stuff. Dave, thanks for doing this, man. Appreciate it, as always. There's Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today, TV, radio, podcast, web, and up on YouTube. We appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at
4 p.m.
We'll chat then.